Story 1. Mom abandoned us, and I had to raise my brother alone. Now she's back, dying, and needs my kidney to survive while my brother begs me to save her. Hey Reddit, I, 29F, am in a really messed up situation, and I need some outside opinions. I'm being pressured to donate a kidney to my estranged mom, 52F, and I'm about to destroy our family balance by saying no. Last month, we found out my mom's kidneys are failing. The doctors say she needs a transplant ASAP, or she'll have to go on dialysis, which isn't great long-term. They tested me and my brother Ezra, 21M, and surprise, surprise, out of my mother's 2 children, I'm a perfect match, and Ezra is incompatible. The pressure to donate is insane. Ezra is begging me to do it, saying it's a chance to forgive Mom and heal our family. He doesn't get that I don't want to heal anything. I wasn't the one who left. I wasn't the one who chose substances over family. Him asking me to save the mom he barely knew at the expense of the sister who raised him feels like a slap in the face. My dad, 54M, is not directly pressuring me, but I can see the hope in his eyes. He says he'll support whatever I decide, but it's obvious he wants me to do it. He's dreaming of getting his happy family back, and it's making me sick. Mom hasn't straight up asked me for the kidney, but every time I see her, I can feel the question hanging in the air. Part of me wants to yell at her and ask where this concern was when I was 13 and raising her kid. Another part feels weirdly powerful knowing her life is in my hands. So here's a little backstory because you probably think I'm vindictive, but I'm not. 16 years ago, my mother left me and my little brother when I was 13 and he was 5. She was into drugs and just up and vanished one day, leaving us with our dad. Dad tried his best, but he had to work crazy hours to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. Because Dad was always working, I basically had to raise Ezra. At 13 years old, I was making sure he ate, helping with homework, and trying to explain why Mom wasn't around anymore. It sucked big time. I missed out on being a kid because I was too busy playing Mom. Growing up, I was angry at everyone. Mad at Mom for leaving, mad at Dad for not being around enough, mad at Ezra for needing me so much, and mad at myself for not being able to fix everything. I watched other kids have normal childhoods while I was figuring out how to stretch a box of mac and cheese into 2 meals. Ezra had it easier. I made sure of that. I wanted him to have as normal a life as possible, even if it meant I couldn't. I lied to him about why we couldn't afford stuff, pretended everything was fine when Dad and I were freaking out about bills, and hid my own tears so I could wipe his. As we got older, it became clear how different our childhoods were. Ezra got to do sports and hang out with friends. I was too busy being a mini-adult to do any of that stuff. This created a big gap between us that only got worse as time went on. Dad was doing his best. I get that now. But back then, it felt like both my parents had abandoned me. I know he had to choose between being there physically and making sure we didn't starve, but it still hurt. I spent my teens and early 20s being a mess. I partied too hard, made dumb decisions, and pushed people away. It took years of therapy to start dealing with all this baggage. When I met my husband, 31M, things started to get better. He's been super patient and understanding, but even with him, my past issues came up. When he first talked about having kids, I freaked out. The idea of being responsible for a kid brought back all these old fears. It took 2 years of therapy for us to get to a place where I felt okay about trying for a baby. We've been trying for 6 months now. Now, this was when my mother returned. Literally like an abandoned child at an orphanage. She just showed up on my dad's doorstep bright and early. My father wasted no time before letting her in and calling Ezra and me in for a family meeting. My mother looked like a stranger. She said she was clean and wanted to make things right. I was skeptical as hell, but Ezra was all for it. He doesn't remember the worst parts of when she was using drugs, so it was easier for him to forgive her. I lived through it. My mother was my personal hell. Still, my dad encouraged us to give her a chance, which pissed me off. I could tell he was hoping to get back the woman he used to love, but I didn't stick around for their family reunion. I didn't even say a word to my mother before leaving. Over the past few months, while living with my dad again, my mom's been trying to rebuild relationships with us. She stayed clean, got a job, and seemed sorry for what she did. But for me, it's too little, too late. I've been civil, but I can't see her as my mom anymore. Ezra, that stupid idiot, totally embraced her being back. He's always talking about the fun stuff they do together and how great it is to have a mom again. It makes me want to scream. It's like he's forgotten everything I did for him, everything we went through. I tried to focus on my life and not care, but boom, my mother got diagnosed. Ezra was sobbing. My father had tears in his eyes, and I wished I was anywhere else but that hospital room. Sure, when the doctor explained the risks of dialysis and the extensive transplant list my mother would have to join, Ezra was eager to be a donor. I supported his decision, but when he got tested for compatibility, he dragged me along too, and I turned out to be the perfect match. I stormed out of the hospital immediately, refusing to sign the organ donation form. Why should I have to sign it? Now, my brother and my father are saying I have a heart of stone and an unforgiving spirit. They're ignoring me and rallying around my mother instead. My husband's been great through all this. He says he'll back me no matter what, but I can tell he's worried. He's concerned about the surgery risks and how it might mess up our plans to have a baby. Plus, he's seen how hard I've worked in therapy and doesn't want this to undo all that progress. To make things even crazier, my aunt, Mom's sister, 50F, just called me tonight. She hasn't forgiven my mother for abandoning everybody either, and what she told me was a revenge of some sort. Turns out when Mom left us, it wasn't just because of the drugs. She'd been cheating on Dad with a married guy and got pregnant. She left to have the baby and a new life, using the drug addiction as an excuse to bail on us once and for all. I honestly don't know how that turned out or why she returned, but finding this out has ripped open all the old wounds. Not only did Mom abandon us, but she left when she had a choice to stay. I have a half-sibling out there somewhere that I might never meet. I haven't told anyone else in the family about this yet. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Knowing this secret, plus all the pressure about the kidney, is driving me nuts. I'm up all night thinking about my crappy childhood, wondering if I missed some signs. I'm questioning every sacrifice I made, every bit of my youth I gave up, comparing it to what I now know about why Mom really left. Ezra has no clue about any of this new info. He keeps pushing me to donate the kidney, talking about family duty and how this could heal everything. But all I can think about is how he got to have a childhood while I was busy being a parent to him. Dad doesn't know either. I can tell he's getting all soft about Mom again, and it makes me want to shake him and remind him of all the crap we went through because of her. I'm so torn. The thought of having major surgery and giving up an organ for someone who chose to ditch me is almost too much. I think about the risks, how it might mess up my chances of having a baby. I've already given up so much for this family. My childhood, my chance to be a normal kid, my sense of security. Giving up a piece of my body feels like way too much. I'm now the villain. So Reddit, what's the verdict? Am I the asshole for refusing to give my kidney to my estranged mom? Am I being too hung up on the past? I feel like I'm the only one who remembers how bad things really were, the only one who paid the real price for Mom's choices. I'm drowning in this decision. Every choice feels wrong somehow. How do I handle this impossible situation without completely losing my mind? Help me out here, Reddit. Update 1. Hey Reddit, I thought no one would engage on this post, and I'd planned to take it down after 24 hours. But the amount of upvotes and comments that this is getting is insane. First, I just want to thank everyone for their comments and input on my situation. I've been reading through everything, and it's given me a lot to think about. I appreciate those who took the time to understand my perspective, but I've got to be honest, some of the comments telling me to forgive and forget have really gotten under my skin. To the person who quoted Ephesians 4 verse 32, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." I get it. Forgiveness is a nice idea. But you know what? Sometimes forgiveness isn't as simple as a Bible verse. My mother's actions didn't just hurt me for a day or a week. They shaped my entire life. I lost my childhood, my sense of security, and my trust in the people who were supposed to protect me. That's not something you can just erase with a few kind words and a hug. And to all those saying, "But she's your mother," biology doesn't automatically earn your respect or love. My mom gave birth to me, sure, but I'm the one who had to grow up too fast, who had to be a mother to my little brother when she couldn't be bothered? Where was all this family as everything talk when she was out getting high and leaving her kids to fend for themselves? Look, I'm not trying to be bitter or vindictive. I'm trying to protect myself and the life I've built despite everything she put me through. Some of you have suggested therapy for the whole family. We tried that when she first came back. It didn't magically fix everything. My mom cried, said all the right things, but it didn't undo years of abandonment and struggle. A lot of you have pointed out the risks of kidney donation, and I appreciate that. It's not just about the surgery itself but the long-term effects. What if I have complications that affect my ability to have children? What if I need that kidney later in life? Am I supposed to sacrifice my health and potentially my future for someone who didn't think twice about sacrificing me? I've talked to my husband about all of this. He reminded me that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being, that I don't owe anyone a part of my body, not even my mother. We're still trying for a baby, and the idea of jeopardizing that for someone who's been more of a stranger than a mother, it's just too much. The pressure from my family hasn't let up. Ezra's been blowing up my phone with texts ranging from guilt-tripping to outright anger. He even had the nerve to say that if I let Mom die, I'm no better than she was when she abandoned us. That one hurt, I won't lie. Dad's been more subtle, but I can hear the disappointment in his voice every time we talk. It's like they've all forgotten what we went through, what I went through. And then there's my mom. She finally worked up the courage to call me directly. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was hard to listen to. She was crying, telling me she knows she doesn't deserve my help but that she's scared of dying. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but a bigger part remembered all the times I was scared and alone because of her choices. I still haven't told anyone about what my aunt revealed about Mom's affair and the baby she gave up. Every time I think about bringing it up, I imagine the look on Dad's face, the way it would crush Ezra's newfound relationship with Mom. But keeping this secret is eating me up inside. It feels like I'm protecting her all over again, carrying the weight of her mistakes. I know this update probably makes me sound cold and unforgiving. Maybe I am, but I'm also tired. Tired of being the one who has to be strong, who has to sacrifice. For once, I want to put myself first without feeling guilty about it. So that's where I'm at. Still torn, still hurting, still not sure what the right thing to do is. But I'm trying to stand my ground, to prioritize my own health and happiness, even if it means being the villain in everyone else's story. Thanks again for listening, Reddit. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but knowing there are people out there who understand, even a little bit, helps more than you know. Update 2. Hey Reddit, I know it's just been 2 days, but I'm back with another update, and things have gotten even more messed up. So remember how I mentioned Ezra had been blowing up my phone? Well, he decided texting wasn't enough. Yesterday, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was at work, but my husband was home, working on some projects for his job. According to my husband, Ezra burst into our home. He was ranting about how Mom's condition is getting worse and how the doctors are saying time is running out. He demanded to know where I was, saying he was going to drag me to the hospital himself if he had to. My husband, bless him, tried to calm Ezra down. He explained that I was at work and that this wasn't the way to handle things. But Ezra wasn't having it. He accused my husband of turning me against my family, of poisoning me against Mom. Things got heated, and Ezra actually took a swing at my husband. Thankfully, my husband managed to dodge it, but he had to physically restrain Ezra to keep him from tearing the apartment apart looking for me. It got so bad that one of our neighbors called the cops. I got home just as the police were leaving. My husband had a bruise on his jaw where Ezra had managed to land a blow, and our living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Ezra was gone, having left when the cops showed up, but the damage was done. I was in shock. This wasn't the little brother I raised. This wasn't the kid I'd sacrificed everything for. It was like looking at the work of a stranger, and a violent one at that. I called Ezra, hoping to talk some sense into him. I didn't raise him to be acting this way. Big mistake. He picked up and just started screaming at me. He called me every name in the book, accused me of being selfish, of not caring about family. And then he said something that I don't think I'll ever forget. If Mom dies because of you, I'll never forgive you. You'll be dead to me just like you're letting her die. I hung up. Couldn't breathe. It was like all my worst fears were coming true. The brother I'd raised, the one person I thought would always have my back, was choosing mom over me. I broke down, full on ugly crying, couldn't catch my breath. My husband held me through it, but I could tell he was shaken too. This whole situation is tearing us apart. To make matters worse, my dad called this morning. Apparently, Ezra told him a twisted version of what happened at our apartment. Now dad thinks I set my husband on Ezra, that I'm the one causing all this drama. He actually had the nerve to say that if I just stopped being stubborn and donated the kidney, none of this would be happening. I lost it. I told him everything. About mom's affair, about the baby she gave up, about how she chose to leave us, how it wasn't just the drugs. I told him how I'd been carrying this secret, protecting mom, even now, after everything. I told him how angry I was all my life and it was also his fault. There was silence on the other end of the line for what felt like forever. Then I heard a sob. My dad, who I've only seen cry maybe twice in my life, was breaking down. He kept saying he was sorry, that he didn't know, that he should have been there more. I felt awful. In trying to defend myself, I'd hurt him all over again. But a part of me was relieved too. Finally, someone else was carrying the weight I'd carried all my life. After we hung up, I got a lot of texts from Ezra. Dad had called him, told him everything. Ezra's tune has changed completely now. He's apologizing, saying he didn't understand, begging me to forgive him. But I don't know if I can. The things he said, the way he acted, it's not something I can just forget. Mom's been blowing up my phone too. I think Dad must have confronted her about the affair back then and the baby. Her messages are a mix of apologies and pleas for understanding. She's saying she was young and scared, that she's changed. Young, really? My brother and Dad are still understanding, taking care of her daily. But all I can think is, where was this understanding when I was young and scared? I feel like I'm drowning. Dad's a mess. Mom's health is deteriorating, and me? I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I don't know what to do anymore. Part of me wants to run away, to disappear like Mom did all those years ago. But I know that's not the answer. I've spent too long picking up the pieces of her mistakes. I won't make the same ones. For now, I'm taking some time off work. My husband and I are thinking about getting away for a bit, just to clear our heads. I've blocked everyone's numbers except for Dad's. I need space to think, to figure out what I want, what I need. I don't know if I'll ever donate that kidney. The way things are now, even if I wanted to, I don't think I could handle being in the same room as my family long enough to do it. So that's where things stand. My family's in shambles. My brother's shown a side of himself I never knew existed. And I'm left wondering if there's any way to fix this mess, or if it's even worth trying. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I don't know if I'll update again. I might even delete the original post. But right now, I just need to focus on healing, not just for my mom, but for myself. Update 3. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened. I'm writing this from my home, 3 months after the surgery. Yes, you read that right. I donated my kidney to my mom. I know this might come as a shock to many of you, given how adamant I was about not doing it before. Believe me, I'm still processing it myself. But I want to make one thing clear. This was my choice. Nobody pressured me into it, not my dad, not Ezra, not even my mom. After my last update, my husband and I took that time away I talked about. We rented a cabin in the mountains. No cell service, no internet, just us, nature, and a whole lot of time to think. Being away from the chaos helped clear my head, but I kept having nightmares, and I knew that if I didn't at least try to help, I'd never forgive myself. The thought of my mom dying, of having that on my conscience, it was too much to bear. I realized I wasn't just angry at my mom. I was angry at the world, at the unfairness of it all. And holding on to that anger was hurting me more than anyone else. When we got back, I told my husband my decision. He was worried but supportive. We met with the doctors, got all the information, and started the process. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. The surgery was tough, the recovery tougher. But you know what? I don't regret it. Not because it magically fixed everything, it didn't, but because for the first time in years I feel at peace with myself. The day of the surgery, I saw my mom before they wheeled us in. She was crying, thanking me over and over. I told her the truth, that I was doing this for me as much as for her, that I forgave her, but I couldn't forget, that I hoped she'd get better, but that I didn't see a future where we had a close relationship. It wasn't what she wanted to hear, but she understood. I wanted to ask her about my sibling, but some things are better left unknown. We hugged, a real hug, not the awkward ones we'd shared since she came back. Felt like a goodbye in a way. Ezra and I have started to rebuild our relationship. He apologized profusely for his behavior. The slow progress, but it's progress. He's realizing that his memories of our childhood aren't the whole story, and he's starting to understand the sacrifices I made. Dad's been by everyone's side through all of this. He's also dealing with his own guilt and regrets. We've grown closer in a way we never were before. He tells me how proud he is of me, not just for the donation, but for the person I've become despite everything. My husband has been incredible. He was there every step of the way, from the decision to the recovery. Our relationship is stronger than ever. As for me, I'm healing in more ways than one. The physical recovery hasn't been easy, but the emotional weight I've carried for years feels lighter. I'm not naive enough to think everything's perfect now. I still have my bad days, my moments of doubt, but I'm proud of myself for making a decision that was true to who I am, not who others wanted me to be. To those of you who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your words, your understanding, they meant more than you know. Take care, Reddit, and remember, healing is not linear, and forgiveness is personal. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My friend stayed with us for a month and had an emotional affair with my girlfriend behind my back. I checked our computer and found messages of them meeting up. I've been living with my GF for over 2 years now, and we've dated for about 6 years since we met in college. We've both been out of college for a while now, and I was pretty happy with my life overall. Or at least I was until this shit happened and turned everything upside down. Some background. We met at a party in our junior year. We hit it off right away, started dating, and just kind of never stopped. Things were good for the most part. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing major. After graduation, we both found decent jobs in the same city, so we decided to move in together. That was about 2 years ago, and honestly, things were going well. We talked about marriage a few times, but never seriously. We had a nice routine going, shared a dog, and I even bought a house about 10 months back that we've been fixing up together. So, one of my friends who moved out of the country a few years back announced he was coming back for a visit. I offered for him to stay with us since he didn't have anywhere else to go and hotels here are expensive. My GF had never met Larry, not his real name obviously, but she kind of knew him through me because Larry and I would Skype sometimes and she was often around during those calls. They'd sometimes say hi to each other, nothing major. Larry and I go way back. We met in freshman year of college, had a lot of the same classes, studied together, partied together. We were pretty close until he moved away for work about 3 years ago. We kept in touch, but not as much as before. Just the occasional Skype call every couple months, checking in on social media, that sort of thing. Anyway, we were all excited for him to visit. I hadn't seen the guy in forever and thought it would be fun to catch up. I cleared it with my GF first, of course. She seemed totally fine with it and said she was looking forward to meeting him finally. She even cleaned up the guest room specially and bought new sheets for it. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such a considerate girlfriend. The visit. Fast forward. Larry arrives and everything seems cool at first. He's grateful for the place to stay. We're having a good time showing him around. It's all good. I took a few days off work to hang out with him at first, show him around the city, introduce him to some of our mutual friends who still live nearby. My GF joined us when she could, but she had to work most days. But about 2 to 3 weeks into his stay, he was planning to stay for about a month. I started feeling uncomfortable with the way Larry and my GF would act together. Nothing specific I could point to exactly, just vibes. They'd laugh at inside jokes I wasn't part of. They'd text each other while we were all in the same room. She seemed to light up when he came into the room. There was this one time when we were all watching a movie and they sat on the couch together while I was in the armchair. And I swear they were sitting closer than necessary. Another time, I came home from work early and they were in the kitchen cooking together and listening to music, looking way too comfortable. I tried to ignore it at first, told myself I was being paranoid or whatever. Maybe I was just jealous that they were getting along so well. I should be happy that my GF and my friend like each other, right? But it kept bugging me. So, I finally decided to talk to my GF about it. She assured me nothing was going on and that I was imagining things. She said she was just trying to make my friend feel welcome since he was staying with us for so long. I wanted to believe her, so I didn't say anything to Larry. But the weirdness continued. I started noticing more small things. They seemed to have all these little routines together that developed while I was at work. They'd have coffee together in the mornings after I left. They had started watching some TV show together that I wasn't interested in. Once I overheard them talking about me, and they got quiet when I walked in the room. Just lots of little stuff that by itself wouldn't mean anything, but altogether was making me increasingly uncomfortable in my own house. Eventually, Larry's little annoying habits started to really get to me, too. Leaving dishes in the sink, being loud when I was trying to sleep, using my stuff without asking. Small stuff that wouldn't normally bother me, but now felt like a huge deal. We'd have these little arguments over nothing. Like, I asked him to clean up after himself in the bathroom, and he acted like I was being unreasonable, or he'd finish the beer in the fridge and not replace it. The tension in the house was getting uncomfortable. So, I finally asked Larry to move out and find somewhere else to stay. I told him we needed our space back and that having a house guest for this long was straining things between me and my GF. He seemed surprised but agreed, though things were pretty awkward after that. He started looking for an Airbnb or something. My GF was weirdly upset about this and said I was being a bad friend. We had a fight about it where she called me selfish and said I was treating Larry badly for no reason. That really hurt because I felt like she should be on my side. The aftermath. About a week later, Larry left. He's gone back to wherever the hell he lives now, some European country. I forget which one. I thought that would be the end of it, and things would go back to normal between my GF and me. But a few days back, I noticed my GF's Facebook had some messages from Larry. We have a shared PC in the living room, and she left it open when she went to take a shower. I wasn't snooping or anything. It was just there on the screen. When I asked my GF about it after her shower, she quickly closed the window and told me it's nothing, just Larry trying to understand why I was bitter at him. This made me suspicious, but I tried to let it go. We went about our lives for the next few days, but things felt off between us. My GF would scold me and call me a miserable person for how I treated Larry. We even had a fight about it when I told my GF I didn't want Larry to stay over the night before his flight. He wanted to come back to our place for his last night in the country. She eventually apologized, but I was still disappointed that she didn't have my back or understand my feelings. I was just shutting down our PCs after my GF had gone to bed, and my curiosity got the worst of me. I know this is bad, and I'm not proud of it. I opened up her FB. She was already logged in, and I noticed a message from Larry that was unread. I opened it and went through their conversation history, and this is where I wanted to throw up. They met up at least once behind my back when I was on a business trip to Chicago a couple weeks ago. They were also planning to coordinate another visit, but my GF said she didn't feel it would work out logistically. Then Larry replies back that he needs to hold her again and misses her very much, calling her things like sweetie, babe, and beautiful. He even said something about how he wished they had more time alone together during his visit. I was livid. Words cannot describe how I felt reading that. The combination of anger, despair, sadness, betrayal, and pure rage was too much for me to take. It gets worse. My GF had also sent him a photo of a campfire from this weekend when we were together on a camping trip that I planned as a way to reconnect, that she took and sent to Larry saying, "I miss you and wish you were here instead." God damn it. I felt so stupid. Here I was thinking I was being paranoid, and all along they were actually sneaking around behind my back in my own fucking house. I kept reading. I know I should have stopped, but I couldn't, and found out they had been texting pretty much nonstop since he left. Little updates about their days, flirty comments, inside jokes, all that shit. There wasn't any explicit mention of physical stuff happening between them, but the whole tone of the conversation was definitely not appropriate for someone in a relationship. And there were a few references to moments alone together that made me think the worst. I confronted my GF right away. Had to wake her up at 1 a.m. and ask her about it. At first, she was sleepy and denied it all. But when I told her I'd read her conversation history, things became clear in her mind that I had seen everything. "You had no right to read my messages," she said at first, trying to turn it around on me. I wasn't having it. I explained how hurt I was. I housed this guy and showed him a good time for a month. And even after all of this, she told me I was the crazy one. Now my worst suspicions turned out to be true. My friend Larry is obviously cut from my life. Can't have toxic people like that around. She started crying and said she never meant to hurt me. She said that nothing physical happened between them, which I don't believe for a second, and that they just connected and enjoyed talking to each other. She tried to make it seem like it was innocent, but there's nothing innocent about sneaking around behind my back and sending flirty messages to another guy, especially one of my friends. I asked her directly if she had feelings for him. She hesitated, then said, "I don't know. Maybe it's confusing." That was all I needed to hear. I told her to get out, go sleep on the couch because I couldn't even look at her right then. But my GF is another problem. I'm seriously head over heels in love with her and don't want to lose her. On the other hand, my heart is torn, and I have too much self-respect to continue dating her. She completely destroyed my trust, and what's worse is humiliated me by going after one of my friends that I let stay with us. I feel like I fucked myself in a lot of ways and that I should have seen this coming, but I was naive. We both had to work the next day, but I couldn't sleep at all. I just laid there staring at the ceiling. I remember one night when I had to work late and came home to find them drinking wine and laughing together. Another time when I wanted to go out with just me and my GF and she suggested we invite Larry along. All these little moments that seemed innocent at the time but now feel sinister. GF and I barely spoke the next morning. She tried to talk to me, but I just couldn't deal with it before work. I went in early and stayed late, avoiding coming home. When I finally did get home, she wanted to talk. What she told me was that she didn't think I loved her anymore. That every time she tried to talk to me about something serious, I'd make jokes and laugh it off. That I never paid attention to her needs or feelings. That Larry actually listened to her and made her feel appreciated. I know this isn't easy to hear, and I admit to being immature sometimes, but damn, I thought we were stronger than this. I never realized she was feeling this way, but that's still no excuse for what she did. I'm not perfect. I work a lot. Sometimes I forget important dates. Sometimes I'm not the best at expressing my feelings, but I've always loved her and tried to show it in my own way. I thought she knew that. I thought what we had was strong enough to weather any storm. I guess I was wrong. I feel like us breaking up is inevitable, but it makes things so complicated considering I just bought this house about 10 months ago, and we share a dog. She's even driving a car that I gave her when I upgraded to a new one last year. Splitting things up won't be easy. To be honest, I don't want her to go, but my brain is telling me this is what we need to do, even though my heart feels otherwise. We've been sleeping in separate rooms for the past couple days. The atmosphere in the house is awful. We barely speak except when necessary, mostly about practical things like who's feeding the dog or what groceries we need. I haven't told many people what happened yet. Just a couple of close friends who don't know Larry. They all say I should kick her out immediately, but it's not that simple. Should I try to work things out with her? Did she actually cheat, or am I overreacting? I don't know what to do. Update. A lot of you assume things that weren't true, but most of you are right about me needing to end things. It's been almost 20 days since this all went down. I've had a lot of time to myself, and my job keeps me on the road, so I've had a few business trips in the meantime to keep me distracted. I had to go to meetings in Boston and Atlanta, which was actually a blessing because it gave me some space away from the house and all the memories there. After that first night, we had several more conversations over the next few days. They all went pretty much the same way. She would cry and apologize and say she never meant to hurt me. I would ask for more details about what happened between them, and she would either get defensive or give vague answers that didn't really tell me anything. She swore they never slept together, but admitted they did kiss once. I don't know if I believe that's all that happened. Honestly, I think the worst part was when she tried to blame me for it. Said I was emotionally unavailable and I didn't give her the attention she needed. Said she felt lonely even when I was right there. Maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know. But it doesn't excuse what she did. After about a week of this back and forth, I finally told her it was over for good and she needed to move out. She cried a lot, but eventually agreed it was for the best. She's staying with her sister for now until she finds a new place. I let her take the dog for now since I'm traveling so much for work, but we agreed he's ultimately mine and she'll bring him back once she gets settled somewhere. I also let her keep the car since it was a gift and I don't need it back. I'm not petty enough to take back a gift even after what she did. So far, I'm enjoying my new lifestyle that I'm trying to build for myself. There's a lot of free time I have now, and I'm enjoying having full control over my schedules and tasks that I do day to day. Being able to plan for just myself is alleviating, and I'm starting to look back and see all the flaws that were present in my past relationship that I now really see as red flags. For example, this wasn't the first time she had questionable behavior with other guys. There was this coworker of hers a couple years back who she was always texting and hanging out with. I expressed concern then, too, but she made me feel like I was being controlling and jealous, so I backed off. Nothing ever came of it as far as I know. But now I wonder if something did happen and I just never found out. Another red flag was how she would always go through my phone but got super defensive if I ever picked up hers. She knew my passcode but wouldn't tell me hers on principle. I see now how hypocritical that was. Overall, I was pretty unhappy when I was with my ex. I'm recognizing that now. I put up with the unhappiness and kept going because I felt that this is what normal guys do in long-term relationships, the sunken cost theory and all that. Also, I thought she was loyal, so I didn't see any point in breaking things up, which I recognize now is one of my personal faults that I need to fix to consider myself healthy again. There's a lot I'm learning about myself through this process, like how I tend to ignore problems until they're too big to deal with, or how I use humor to deflect from serious conversations. Just like she said, I'm trying to work on these things, though it's hard to change habits that are so ingrained. I met someone when I was on one of my trips to Atlanta and we had sex in my hotel room. It was one of the worst sexual experiences I've ever had. It was way too early after the breakup, and in my mind I was just thinking I'd be horny and fuck someone else and give myself a break. The second we started to have sex, I felt myself get hit with a tidal wave of emotion. I immediately thought of my ex since she was the only person I had sex with for years. The actions, thrusting, etc. were so connected in my head with being with her. Looking down and realizing I wasn't with her made me sick and very upset. I couldn't finish. I ended up rolling over and trying to hold back my tears. Thankfully, this woman was understanding when I told her I just got out of a relationship and she decided to leave without any commotion. She was even nice enough to tell me she knows how it feels and that it will get better with time. Definitely not gonna call her again. I regret even putting myself in that scenario, but I guess I learned something about myself afterwards. Mainly that I'm not ready to be with anyone else yet, not even for casual sex. My ex didn't really have any of her own friends. This should have been another red flag. She was constantly around my friends, and being honest, I didn't really mind. But now that I see how broken that is for a person to lack any best friend or a group of people they saw before we got together. My friends have always been there for me, even the ones I knew before my ex granted. She's now on her own. I have no idea who she's talking to about this whole scenario aside from her immediate family, and I don't really care. Speaking of friends, I've had the talk with a few mutual friends me and Larry had. Everyone is pretty much shocked, but they also told me that they had a feeling something was going on. But Larry would lie to them when they'd ask. A couple of them noticed how my ex would act around Larry during group hangouts and thought it was suspicious, but didn't want to say anything without proof. I wish they had, but I understand why they didn't. Larry has since tried to reach out to some of them to try to rectify the situation, but they've already heard the story from me first. So most of them have cut Larry out of their lives. But to be honest, I'm not very close with these people and don't plan on growing to be more close to them in the future. Larry was the only connection in our relationship. So, if they do continue and associate with him, I would definitely not be happy and wouldn't mind cutting off contact with them as well. This actually became an issue with one of our mutual friends. We'll call him John. John's a good guy. We have similar interests and he was around a lot of the time Larry was. John was over at my house this past weekend since he just picked up his new car near a dealership near my place. He lives like 1.5 hours away. So John and I are shooting the shit, and it's kind of inevitable for us to talk about what happened with me. He did bring up how he talked to Larry and how Larry is still lying to him. This kind of irked me. I told John the first didn't care about Larry and that if he's going to continue to associate with Larry, then I can't see us continuing to be friends. John was obviously a little upset by this, saying he just can't process what happened and wants to give Larry a chance to explain himself. I told him that's fine, but again, it's like he's condoning these actions, and if he wants to get burned in the future, that's his own decision. I just don't want Larry around me in any shape or form. And if John wants to be around me, he needs to understand that. It's not like Larry broke my car and refuses to pay. The guy stabbed me in the back, and I can't ever forget that. Even if in time I find it in myself to forgive Larry, which right now I can't. Larry is dead to me. We talked only briefly after I kicked my ex out, and it was mostly us cursing at one another. Very childish. Like I said, I knew I wouldn't get any closure out of talking to the guy and hearing him try to explain himself. He tried to say that he never intended for things to go that way, that it just happened. What bullshit. Things like that don't just happen. You make choices. He made the choice to betray me, and now he has to live with the consequences. Larry and my ex are both very broken people. They blame others for their own unhappiness and feel it's justified when their behaviors cause others to become upset. I can see why they were attracted to each other in a way. They both have this victim mentality where nothing is ever their fault. There's always someone else to blame. In this case, that someone else was me. I don't know if they're still in contact. Part of me thinks they probably are, but I'm trying not to obsess over it. What they do now is their business. I just want to move on with my life. Now, as for me, well, my head is a fucking tornado about 12 hours of every day. I've been smoking pot to keep my cool and enjoy video games, but there is a lot of time when I avoid it altogether because I know I feel depressed, and smoking pot will only drive me to be more sad since I'll dwell on my feelings in the past. Moving on is one of the hardest things I've had to do in my whole life. Some days are better than others. I'll have a good day at work or a fun night playing games with friends online and I'll think I'm doing okay. Then something will remind me of her and it all comes crashing back. I've heard stories from others saying how they are happy to hear that this happened to me. Why? Well, they've had the same thing happen except after 30 years of marriage and 3 kids. So, they felt like they were not only robbed of some of the best years of their life, but now they also have a financial obligation towards the person who manipulated and hurt them the worst. I don't feel better hearing about how worse it could have been, but I'm happy we never had any kids or decided to marry. I definitely would have been dealing with another sideshow of a scenario. More red flags. Here's another kicker. My ex's sister, only 2 years older than her, did the exact same thing at the start of this year to her own husband literally a couple days after we got back from their destination wedding. She met another guy at their wedding and decided this was the guy for her. Fucked him. Still went through with the wedding. And afterwards, when everyone got back, she broke it off with her husband. I didn't know the full story, and at the time we just moved into our new home. So I invited her to stay with us until she got back on her feet. When she started seeing this new guy, I was really uneasy about it. This was also complicated because she was living here and didn't seem to have any plans to move out. I had to coach her sister on how to get a loan for a down payment, how to talk to landlords, etc. A very immature family. This should have been another huge red flag, but I ignored it and had to deal with the consequences of it. My parents have been great, too. They were never crazy about my ex. Turns out parents sometimes do know best, but they've been careful not to say, "I told you so." My dad helped me move some of her bigger stuff to her sister's place, and my mom has been sending me home-cooked meals that I can freeze and reheat. Not sure if I'll update again. Still trying to figure out where to go from here. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My wife went to the UK for a wedding. I got an email from a stranger with photos of her earrings found in another man's pocket. Now she's moving there permanently and leaving our children behind. Hello everyone. I am 47 and have a comfortable and fulfilling life. I have a job I truly enjoy. I live in a nice suburb and am blessed with 3 wonderful children. M8, F6, F4, and a lovely wife, Emily. 45. I've always felt Emily and I were an ideal match. However, a recent email I received has deeply unsettled me and planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Emily lived in the UK between 2010 and 2015, during which time she pursued a PhD. Because she lived there so long, she developed many close friendships and has made it a point to return every couple of years to maintain those ties. This past August, she traveled to the UK for 3 weeks to attend the wedding of one of her close friends. After some consideration, we agreed that it would be best for me and the children to remain at home, as I could not take that much time away from work and the children were unlikely to find much enjoyment in such an event. Emily departed, returned as expected, and life returned to normal for us. Last week, I received an email on my work email address. It was supposedly from the wife of Emily's friend. I'll call him Jake, M44. According to this woman, she has a very strong reason to suspect that Jake and Emily engaged in an affair. She listed off her suspicions, noting Jake had picked Emily up from the airport, spent considerable time at her hotel, and how the two of them frequently went out to dinner alone. She even included pictures of my wife's earrings that she said she found in Jake's pockets when she was doing the laundry and pictures of a lipstick stain on a shirt. The color is one I recognize as something Emily often wears. There is some other evidence she listed off. For the sake of conciseness, I will not include them here. All this was a lot to absorb, and for a while I thought it was some sort of joke, so I tried my best to ignore it, but it kept coming back into my mind. I remember that before her trip, my wife would talk to all her friends there. I don't know if this email is influencing my memory, but I think she probably spoke with Jake the most. Additionally, I know Emily never liked Jake's wife, though I can't say why. I've never pried into Emily's phone or social media accounts before, but I feel very tempted to now. However, I know I'd feel terrible if I looked and found nothing. Also, if I start acting suspicious, wouldn't she just delete everything out of fear of being found out? I am unsure of how to move forward and would welcome any guidance on handling this. The best I can currently come up with is asking to see her phone immediately after confronting her about it so as to not give her any time to delete anything, though part of me thinks this would upset her and potentially not even show anything. Edit. I forgot to include, my wife no longer has these earrings. She wasn't wearing them when she returned, and when I asked, she said she lost them. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Info. The other evidence bears listing. Best to have all the facts as you understand them, concision aside. OP. It isn't as solid as the other stuff she shared, which is why I decided to leave it out, but the other evidence is as follows. She said that every day Emily was there, Jake would either go see her or talk on the phone with her. She also said that whenever Jake was on the phone with Emily, he'd quickly hang up or leave the room if he noticed her. She mentioned they seemed to not even hide how much physical contact they'd have, as they'd always find an excuse to touch each other. They'd reminisce about old times a lot. She even said the way they would look at each other. Comment 2. NTA and show your wife the email from this person and ask the question. I guess I will. Here's hoping it turns out to be nothing. Update 1. October 18th, 2024. A few hours after sharing my first post, I confronted Emily. She confirmed my fears. She claims she's in love with Jake and can't live a lie any longer. She still claims to love me and the kids but says she can't stay with us any longer. According to her, she was waiting for a better time to tell me and the children. Apparently, this has been going on since March, with Jake flying out here occasionally and Emily secretly meeting him. We're getting divorced. Emily is moving to the UK soon. She confirmed that in August, in addition to the wedding, she attended a job interview, and she's set to start around the new year. She's already applied for a British visa. She plans to live with Jake once she moves. As for custody, Emily is voluntarily surrendering her chance of full custody. She doesn't want to uproot the kids, so they'll stay here in Canada with me. There's a part of me that appreciates that decision, but there's also the part that is astonished at how easily she's walking away. She wants to pay child support, but I'd rather raise my children without her financial influence. That said, the court will likely insist on support regardless of my feelings. Emily is also seeking structured visitation rights, which, given the circumstances, will likely be granted. Based on what I've been told, the court generally leans toward arrangements that allow both parents to maintain relationships with the children, even when one is relocating to a different country. The lawyers are still working out the details, but it seems she'll have visitation during school breaks and holidays with the possibility of virtual calls in between. I've been keeping things as amicable as possible, and the more cooperative I am, the more Emily seems to agree with my demands. We are also discussing the future of our home. Emily has expressed a desire to sell the property and divide the proceeds. While I am reluctant to part with our family home, it is unlikely I have much of a choice since it was bought during our marriage. For now, our lawyers are still working through the details, and no final decisions have been made. Given the situation, it could be a good while before we reach a resolution. In the meantime, I've been advised not to make any major financial moves. As much as I want to stay here with the children, I know selling is most likely inevitable. As of this writing, Emily is in an Airbnb, and Jake has flown here to stay with her. They plan on traveling to the UK at some point in the near future. My lawyer tells me that adultery isn't grounds for special treatment when it comes to custody or property division. Therefore, it won't influence how assets are divided unless marital funds are directly involved. Emily likely used money from her personal account. Unless it can be proven she used our joint finances to fund the affair, it's unlikely this will make any difference in court. I've been in regular communication with Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife, Eleanor, primarily through email, and more recently we've spoken over the phone a few times. Eleanor apologized, saying she felt guilty for telling me about the affair and worried that if she hadn't, maybe my marriage could have been salvaged. I reassured her that for me, the gravity of the situation made divorce inevitable, and I'd rather not remain in the dark about something of this significance. She even sent me messages and other evidence of their relationship, but since Emily is openly admitting to the affair, it doesn't really matter in the context of the law. Eleanor has also told me a lot about Jake. Apparently, this is the third time he's cheated on her, and she's had enough. There's no chance of reconciliation this time, she says, and he doesn't seem interested in trying. She mentioned that Jake has zero desire to raise children who are not biologically his, which explains why Emily's not fighting for custody. Eleanor's divorce will most likely be much longer and more drawn out than mine, given that both her and Jake want full custody of their children and can't agree on several other issues. I haven't had much time to process everything. These past 2 weeks have felt like a blur in every way, but one thing I can say with certainty is that I have nothing left for Emily, not because she betrayed our marriage, but because of how easily she's walking away from our children. I never thought I could hate someone I once loved so much. It's a strange feeling. The hardest part in all of this is the children. My 2 youngest daughters have started asking why their mother isn't around as much anymore, and it's been very difficult trying to communicate with them about the nature of the situation. My eldest seems to understand a little more, and as a result, he has become quiet and withdrawn. I'm fortunate to have a family that has been incredibly supportive so far. My children have received numerous thoughtful letters from some of their cousins, which I've been reading to them each night. All my siblings have also sent gifts for the kids, and one of my brothers, along with his wife, drove up to visit over the past weekend. My sister-in-law even prepared plenty of food, some of which is still in the freezer. They also kept the children entertained while I met with my lawyer. My other siblings have also offered to come by and look after the kids whenever I need them. Beyond that, my parents have been calling daily to check in on us, and my 78-year-old mother has already made plans to stay with us for 2 weeks in November to help around the house. The collective effort of my family has made this experience much more bearable, and I'm deeply grateful for all their support. To everyone who encouraged me to speak with Emily after my last post, I'm grateful. I was tempted to ignore Eleanor's message, but it kept gnawing at me. Your advice gave me the courage to act. Emily has shown herself to be a liar, and I have no doubt that her idea of a better time was simply when it would cause the least inconvenience for her and Jake. Update 2. November 13th, 2024. Think of this less as an update and more as a chance to vent a few things now that I've had more time to process my situation. I know that Emily often traveled back and forth to the UK during our marriage. She claims her affair with Jake only began in March 2024, but I'm convinced she's lying. It's almost certain that this has been going on for years, given how much she had already prepared by the time I confronted her. It's become clear to me and everyone else that she had been planning this for some time. In fact, within a few short days of our confrontation, she already had certain legal documents prepared. Additionally, Jake arriving in Canada shortly after I confronted Emily made it clear that they had planned for her to tell me roughly around this date in advance. It makes sense that Emily was well prepared and was just waiting for things to be better lined up for herself. After all, she had long since applied for her visa, secured a job, secretly appraised her car, our family car, though it was under her name, and sent personal items with Jake to the UK during his secret visits. All right under my oblivious nose. I have a feeling I'm only scratching the surface and have no real idea of how far this actually goes. Not that Emily would ever tell me its depth. In addition to all of this, Emily had already been in touch with her lawyer long before I confronted her. Taking all this into account, it's hard not to wonder if she secured her job even earlier than she let on, perhaps to make her actions seem less calculated. Two of Emily's friends have since reached out to express shock and disappointment by her actions. One of them, Janet, mentioned that according to another friend, Emily had been consulting her divorce lawyer as far back as late August or early September. And this other friend also confirmed my suspicion that Emily had been sending some of her belongings to the UK during Jake's visits. I've been losing sleep replaying the past few months in my mind, maybe driving myself a little crazy, but certain things stand out. For example, when Emily went to the UK in August for the wedding, she was carrying 3 fully loaded suitcases. She told me that they were filled with presents for her friends, and I didn't question it, even though it seemed a bit excessive at the time. When I picked her up from the airport after her trip, I noticed the bags were suspiciously light. I can assume that in addition to the job interview she claimed to attend, she transported a bunch of her personal items to the UK, which would explain why since her return she seemed to have been wearing a smaller selection of her clothing. Despite this, I was somehow blindsided, and I completely blame myself. Looking back, I can see there were signs I ignored, and I guess I didn't think Emily was capable of this sort of thing. A part of me wonders if this outcome could have been avoided entirely had I been more assertive and vigilant in the past. The worst part of all is that my children are now dealing with the consequences of my ignorance and stupidity. While I twiddled my thumbs, my wife had essentially started a new life. Most people in my life now know about my separation from Emily. I've stopped wearing my wedding band, and I've explained the situation to friends and colleagues who noticed its absence. One of my close friends and many others who reached out privately on Reddit have suggested I get DNA tests for the children given Emily's travel patterns and tendency to lie. While I understand where they are coming from, this is something I'll never do. I'd never assign my children to another man. Nothing will change that. Life without Emily has thus far been difficult. Mornings have become a hectic rush between getting the kids ready and getting myself out the door. I'm barely on time for work for nearly half the week. It's frankly exhausting trying to keep up with all the extra parenting duties I have to perform throughout the day. Our current home has a large driveway, so on top of everything else, I'm already dreading the task of shoveling it once the snow starts falling. The kids are feeling the strain as well. They don't particularly like the food I prepare most days, and they hate how I'm always busy. It's incredibly frustrating to know that while we're here struggling, Emily recently departed for a relaxing vacation through Europe with Jake. Communication between us has dwindled, and I only learned of these developments recently. I have no idea if she plans to return to Canada after her vacation or settle directly into what will likely be a very comfortable life in the UK. On a more positive note, I was able to get the kids to see their doctor recently. She gave me a bunch of useful resources and advice. She placed an emphasis on how time and clear communication were the most important factors for their adjustment. While I'm optimistic, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. It's still early, I know, but they remain quite upset about the entire ordeal and act out regularly as a result. It is abundantly clear that they're having a hard time adjusting to our new reality. Throughout all of this, my family has been a tremendous support. My mother arrived as promised early last week, and things have already become significantly easier. The kids enjoy her cooking and spending time with her. Her presence has also freed me to handle other tasks. Whenever the divorce is finalized, I plan to designate my eldest brother and sister-in-law as legal guardians for the children. They live relatively nearby and have already agreed to take on that role if needed, which brings me some peace of mind. However, I highly doubt this will be anytime soon given my much busier schedule and Emily dragging her feet before traveling. The whole process is slowed to a snail's pace. One of the hardest aspects of all this has been making decisions about our family home. After considerable thought and speaking it over many times with my family, I'm leaning toward selling. At this stage, Emily has already offered me a bit more than half of the proceeds since she sold our SUV right before leaving the country. My lawyer has noted that selling the SUV before we finalized anything was premature on her part, considering I contributed significantly, 40%, to the purchase. He thinks I have strong grounds to seek reimbursement elsewhere in our asset division, which aligns with Emily offering more of the house. Getting more than half seems fair given that I contributed about 65 to 70% of the down payment and monthly mortgage payments. As I mentioned above, the family SUV was registered in only her name. However, I covered about 40% of its cost, so it's frustrating she sold it unilaterally. As I've learned over the past several weeks, my sedan is too snug for the kids and inconvenient for my mother to duck in and out of when she runs errands. Therefore, I'll need to trade it for something larger. In return, Emily has graciously insisted I keep the furniture and appliances. Least she can do, I suppose. As much as part of me would like to stay in our current home, it's probably better for us to move. Part of me hopes this will help us avoid future interference from Emily, though in reality, she's just as likely to interfere no matter where we are. I've been looking at townhouses closer to my place of work, which would cut down my commute and place us near a well-rated school. However, my sisters brought up that moving the kids now would mean changing schools and losing their friends, which would be yet another big change for them. An alternative option is that we move to a smaller, more manageable house closer to our current one. This would reduce my workload and allow the kids to stay at the same school. Regardless of which option we choose, the idea of a new home without Emily's memory is appealing. Our current home's location is yet another example of how foolish and short-sighted I've been. Its location was much more convenient for Emily's commute compared to my own. It worked out for a time, as the children's school was close to Emily's work in case they needed her during the day. But now all of this is useless as my place of work is rather far. I've heard nothing from Emily's family, and frankly, I have no interest in reaching out. As for Emily's future with Jake, I don't wish her relationship to fail. The longer her life is stable, the less likely she'll disrupt ours. But I take solace in knowing she remains unaware of Jake's infidelity history. I don't feel any moral obligation to warn her about Jake's character, and Eleanor feels the same way. I've made a point to check in on Eleanor regularly. She doesn't have the same family support I do. Her immediate family is charmed by Jake's ample wealth and believes that she should do whatever it takes to keep him, even though it is clear that neither he nor Eleanor wants reconciliation. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Her friend was shocked and disappointed by her behavior. How she knew that Emily was already seeing a divorce attorney, right? And also knew that things were being sent to the UK. OP. The two friends who approached me found out from a third friend about my wife seeing a divorce attorney around late August/early September. This third friend only told the two ladies who came to me. She knew all of this after Emily had already moved out of the house. This third friend has not spoken with me directly. Comment 2. I'm so sorry, man. Nobody deserves that pain. I've been carrying it around with me for 15 years. I hope you're luckier than I am and meet someone new. Cheaters are the lowest of the low. She's abandoning her own kids for his. Not a soul to be had. P. It is what it is, I suppose. Cheating is one thing, but I'm still stunned she is walking out on our children like this. I would have never imagined she could do something like this. OP, give some details if Emily decides to come back and want to reinstate her parental rights to her children, what the outcomes would be like for Emily given that Emily intends to pay child support and seeks visitation rights. Should she return in a few years and request access to the children, it's likely she would be granted some access. However, as the primary caretaker, I would retain full custody. There is, of course, the possibility that she may develop a significant criminal record during her time abroad. Should that happen, it would likely bar her from any access to the children, though I admit I might be too optimistic in hoping for such an outcome. The opinions of the kids are also taken into consideration, so I hope if it comes down to that, they clearly state that they prefer staying with me. Of course, all of this is just a rough outline of what I think would happen. Various facts can cause different outcomes. Here's hoping my wife stays away so we don't have to go down that road. OP, reaction on Emily's decision to walk away from their own children, and how Emily is willing to be involved with Jake's children. Yes. I'm still in shock at how easily she can just walk away. As one of my sisters-in-law put it, she's off on her broomstick to fulfill her dreams of being some poor children's wicked stepmother. A small consolation is that Eleanor's children, being a bit older than mine, 11 to 14, will likely do their utmost to make Emily's life difficult. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I changed my wedding date because my sister had a vacation. Then she got pregnant and demanded I move it again. When I refused, she said she'd move her wedding in a heartbeat. So, I'm in a bit of a weird situation. My fiancé and I aren't the most traditional and wanted to have our wedding as more of a family vacation with the bonus of a wedding. My parents have a beautiful lakefront house that we decided to have our wedding at. When we were initially planning our wedding and figuring out dates, I wanted to have it on June 26th. The 26th was important to us because that's the day my fiancé and I first met. But when speaking it over to my family, my sister said no because she already had a vacation on that date. I was sad, but it wasn't the end of the world, so we decided on June 4th to June 9th. Everything was working out perfectly. I let both of our families know to put our wedding down for those dates and started wedding planning. It was all perfect until last night. I got a FaceTime from my dad who showed me the ultrasound, and I was super excited. All of the congratulations jumping around because I'm going to be an auntie. I'm so excited for them and for my future niece or nephew. But it all came crashing down when I asked my sister when she is due, and she said, May 1st, so we're going to have to talk about your wedding. I assumed she just meant that she wasn't going to be able to be in attendance, so I told them that it's okay, we can just FaceTime them in, and her jaw dropped. Then my mom said, we can just push it back to September. I knew my emotions would get the best of me, so I said, we can talk about it later. So we went back to congratulations and thinking of baby names. After the call, I can't lie, I had a bit of a breakdown. I already moved my dates once to accommodate my sister, which was all fine, and I didn't push back on it. But after 7 months of planning our wedding around this date and having my fiancé's family plan around it, I don't want to change it. Unfortunately, I know my family, and they will push for me to move it and will disrespect my decision not to. I know traveling with a newborn baby is going to be hard, which is why I offered up FaceTiming her in, but it seems like that's offensive to them to not want my sister to be present at the wedding. I feel so insanely guilty about being upset over having to change my wedding dates because my sister is pregnant. She's bringing a beautiful new family member into our lives, but I'm still a bit heartbroken that if I don't change the wedding date, I will be seen as inconsiderate and an outcast in my family. So, am I the a-hole for not wanting to push back my wedding because my sister is pregnant? Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, NTA. I'd move it back to the 26th, because that's the day that matters to you and your fiancé. Now she'll only want to go if she can bring the baby, or she'll probably try and get you to move it even further saying she's not traveling with a newborn. Obviously, people are going to be upset no matter what you do or don't do, but all that really matters is you and your fiancé because the moment y'all are married, you're each other's main priorities and no one else should matter when it comes to what you both want. OP. I'm very scared of that since she is going to be a first-time mama. We don't know if she's going to have PPD, PPA, or if baby is going to have colic. I'm scared that if I do push back our wedding to August or September, and then she still can't make it / wants us to push it back even further, I will resent and distance myself from her. I love my sister so much, but she is definitely the type of person where it is her way or the highway, and my parents just go with it because that's just how she is. Comment 2. Tell us why your sister is the golden child without saying it. OP. My sister is the golden child of the family. It's not really a secret or tried to be hidden. She's extremely involved in the family, visits them every weekend while I live across the country, so I only visit them typically once a year, but do FaceTime them regularly. My parents are also very money-driven, and my sister is a doctor in comparison to my brother and I who do trades. She's the definition of the perfect child. She also typically plans all trips, vacations, or outings for my family because she's extremely type A and likes to have control of situations. She's a bit stubborn and likes things her way. We've always just gone with it because it's easier. I expected my wedding to be the line, but I guess not. Comment 3, NTA. Remind the family that it's not just your family that's being impacted by their push to move the dates and that those specific dates are the only ones that work for both sides. Then tell them that no, you will not move the dates to accommodate your sister again since you already did it once. OP. I plan on speaking to them soon about it and putting my foot down on my date. I wanted to give it some time to let emotions settle because my parents did just find out that they're going to be grandparents for the first time and seem to want to protect and side with her. I also spoke to my brother about it and he is on my side. I asked him to be there during the conversation to try and explain things from my point of view if my emotions do get the best of me. Moving my wedding to September is out of the question because it won't work for my fiancé's family with school schedules, and they have already been planning around the current date. Update 1. A lot has happened in the past few days. I called my brother the day after I made my post. He understood where I was coming from and told me that I should absolutely not change my wedding date. So, since I was worried about speaking to my mom and being ganged up on, we planned on when to speak to my mom about not wanting to change my fiancé and I's wedding dates so he could be there to talk to my mom on my behalf if my emotions got the best of me. That didn't happen. My mom called me the next day to talk it over. I informed her that I was not going to change my wedding date, and she was upset initially but surprisingly receptive to it. I was extremely happy about that until she said, "You need to talk to your sister about this because she's not going to be happy about being forced out 1 month postpartum." I explained I wasn't expecting/forcing her to be in attendance. Then my mom said, "No, she's coming to your wedding. I don't care if she's a new mom." After that, I got in a bit of an argument with my mom about her forcing my sister to do something that isn't the best for her and her future family, which I ended up hanging up on her. I don't take being spoken to in a harsh tone easily and will tell the other person to take a minute to reevaluate their tone and come back. During the call, she also let slip that she was also extremely disappointed in me for going to my brother for support instead of her and said I was just creating family drama for no reason, which it is what it is. I needed a family perspective, which is why I called my brother. I ended up trying to call my sister the next day, which was declined, so I texted her and informed her that I would not be changing my wedding dates. It was a lot longer of a text explaining reasons and emotions. She replied a day later with, "You and I both know that your wedding dates aren't officially set, and the only factor would be communicating the change to fiancé's family. I hope the hassle is worth having my and your literal niece or nephew's presence." I explained that I have already ordered/money down on multiple things as well as having my fiancé's family planning/accommodating around this date for 7 months. She was not receptive in my opinion and said, "There are really no excuses. You have the power to move the date even just a little later in the summer to include me, and you're choosing not to. That hurts." Which I ended up responding that I'm not choosing to not have her at my wedding but understand she may not be able to come and will have to FaceTime it instead. As well as explain that I already moved my wedding date once to accommodate her. I asked her to try to put herself in my shoes and how she would have felt if I asked to push back her wedding, which she replied, "I would have moved my date in a heartbeat. That's the difference between us." At that point, I decided to offer up pushing it back to the 26th of June as some commenter said to see if she would still be going to her previously planned vacation, which thank God I did, because she told me she couldn't do the 26th, that she's still going to go on her vacation 20 days after my wedding. I'm not the most knowledgeable about babies since I don't have one, and I've only known my BFF's baby, but I don't feel like there's a huge difference between traveling with a 1-month-old and a 1.5-month-old. So, that solidified in my mind that she doesn't care about me/my fiancé or our feelings but still expects everyone to accommodate to her. At this point, as per my fiancé's advice, I'm putting it in the scroll it drawer in my head, and I'm not going to stress about it anymore because everyone knows the date is set. If my family would like to show up to my wedding, that would be amazing, but if not, I'm not going to be upset. At the end of the day, this will just show me who to prioritize as family in my life because family is not always blood. Update 2. So, this update is absolutely comical to me. As I said in my previous update, I stood strong and told my family I was planning on keeping my wedding dates, which didn't go well, but at least I had my parents' support on it. Everything was as calm and relaxed as it could be. My sister hasn't talked to me since the conversation, but I figured she was just pissed off at me and dealing with everything involving pregnancy. But getting to the hilarious part of this update, 2 days ago, we got a FaceTime from my fiancé's sister-in-law showing us 2 positive pregnancy tests. She's due the first week of June, aka when our wedding is. My fiancé and I did all of the congratulations and excitement because once again, first grandchild and baby in the family. After the call, my fiancé and I just looked at each other and busted out laughing. Not only is my sister having the first grandbaby on my side, but his sister-in-law is having the first grandbaby on his side. All within the month before/during our wedding. Like, what are the chances? My fiancé and I have always had bad luck with planning things, aka why we were planning on a relaxed, chill wedding instead of a big, extravagant wedding. We had a few minutes conversation and it ended up with us agreeing on, in my fiancé's words, let's just elope. So that's exactly what we're doing. Like I said, we aren't traditional and honestly, we were just doing all of this for our family so they could feel included and have a fun time at the lake house. But with all the babies and 9 out of the 14 people who are invited not being able to attend, my sister and BIL, her mom and BIL, my fiancé's mom, dad and little sister and his brother and SIL, why even have the whole wedding thing? So we're going to the courthouse on June 26th, the date that I originally wanted but wouldn't work with my sister's scheduled vacation, to go get married. We're going to keep the photographer that we have a deposit down on and just switch from wedding photos to just a couple shoot. We're also still planning on going to the lake house and just take it as a pre-honeymoon. We've already let all of our family know the whole wedding thing is canceled. My side is relieved and his side is sad because they don't have an opportunity to celebrate us as a couple, but it just wasn't what the universe wanted and we'll plan something in the next couple of years to get our families all together and celebrate, maybe one of our anniversaries. Honestly, I can't even be upset because it's so comical that the one major event we've been planning on doesn't work because of everyone getting pregnant and being due around or during our wedding. But at the end of the day, we're getting married and getting some adorable little nieces or nephews. This will be my last update because no more wedding means no more drama. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. I get why his brother and SIL can't attend, but why can't the rest of your fiancé's family members attend? Anyways, congrats. I told my BF I'm always down to elope, 'cause a big wedding is more trouble than it's worth for me personally. OP. I thought we were getting rid of the big wedding drama by just having our direct family plus 4 extras there, but it didn't work out that way. Still all the drama, so eloping is definitely the right option, lol. The people that can't attend would be my sister and her husband. They're having a baby in May, it's their first child, and it would be a 5-hour drive to get out to the lake house. My sister, mother-in-law, and brother-in-law, my fiancé, and I got close to them at my sister's wedding, week-long trip in Jamaica. Then my soon-to-be BIL and SIL since they are having a baby during our used-to-be wedding dates. His mom, dad, and sister because they would definitely want to at least be close to BIL and SIL while she's having the first grandbaby. The lake house is about a 19-hour drive from where they live. Comment 2. Have a gathering at the lake house when both kids turn 1-year-old. OP. That's what we're thinking. Obviously, we learned our lesson about planning stuff out in advance, but I think a combined 1-year anniversary and 2 1-year-olds' birthday celebration would be adorable. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I secretly learned my fiancé's language. After his mother insulted me on our wedding day, I used it in my speech to expose her in front of everyone. I am engaged to a beautiful man. He's not from around here. He came to this nation for college, which is where we met. We were in the same program. He's the kindest and most caring guy I know. He always treats me with such love and respect. I couldn't ask for a better spouse. We get along well, and things are usually rather easy between us. I'm head over heels for him. The issue, and it's a major one, is his mother. She doesn't like me, and that has been clear from the beginning. I've tried to be polite and considerate. I've attempted to get to know her, but nothing seems to work. I believe, and my fiancé concurs, that it is because I am white. His mother wished he would marry someone from their own nation. It's not just that she disapproves. She intentionally makes me feel uncomfortable, which is quite difficult. Puts a strain on things, even if my fiancé and I are content. It's like a perpetual shade over our relationship. The first time I met his parents was a complete mess. We went over to their place for dinner, and his mother snubbed me the moment I came in. I tried to say hi and be nice, but she refused to acknowledge me. It was as if I wasn't even present. My fiancé did his best to involve me in the conversation, but his mother refused to speak with me at all. Despite the fact that I knew she spoke English, she spent the entire evening speaking only in her own tongue to her son and husband. It left me feeling quite uneasy and out of place. My fiancé and even his father were uneasy about the whole thing. Dinner itself was really silent and tense. I felt like I was invading a private family moment, despite the fact that I was only supposed to be a visitor. I didn't just feel excluded from the talk, I also felt physically separated from them at the table. To make matters worse, as I reached for one of the plates, she took it away and served it to her husband and kid first, ensuring that I was the last to receive anything. My fiancé was very horrified. He apologized repeatedly on the way home. He kept expressing how awful her behavior was and how sad he was that I had to go through it. He promised me that if things didn't improve, we would have less contact with her. He didn't even wait for my response before apologizing and defending myself. He appeared to be as upset as I was, if not more so. The entire meeting was unpleasant, and it gave me a good indication of what I was in for. Of course, even after that dreadful first meeting, I had to see his mother on several occasions. It was his birthday and he wanted to celebrate with his family, including me. I understand how much he loves his family. Each time, I found myself battling my own emotions. I wanted to be there for my spouse, but I was afraid to go. I hoped things would improve, but she remained as cold and disinterested as before. It became a pattern. She would point to my hair, features, or clothes and make comments in her home tongue before laughing. It was clear she was making fun of me. She once pointed at my hair and commented on how it resembled a bird's nest. Then she inquired loudly if I even knew how to care for myself before laughing again. My fiancé became very defensive and began arguing with her. But when I asked him what she was saying, he simply brushed it off and attempted to change the conversation. Later, he revealed that his mother had made a comment about my huge nose and pale skin. He clearly did not want to repeat the hurtful things she was saying. I felt that I was not only being ostracized but being picked on, which was quite terrible. It's not like I'm a terrible person. I actually think I'm a very decent catch. I'm not trying to brag, but I am considered attractive. I was the valedictorian of my college class, and I actually have a better earning job than my fiancé. It isn't about the money, but it demonstrates that I am responsible and hardworking. We divide all of our expenses. I offer him nice gifts, and I've even started learning to prepare his favorite cuisines from his native country. I am doing my best to demonstrate my dedication to him. I also actively endeavor to simplify our home life. I do a lot of the housework and errands to show him that I'm a partner in all aspects of life, not just the fun stuff. I really tried to win over his mother as well. I purchased Christmas gifts for both her and his father. I gave them a lot of thought, trying to locate items they could enjoy, but we were never invited to their Christmas festivities. His father is usually kind to me, which I much appreciate. The issue is primarily with his mother. It seems like no matter what I do, it is never enough. I recall giving his mother a very fine scarf, and she looked at it with hatred and threw it away. Later, I overheard her telling someone else that it was cheap and ugly, which matched my tastes. Things like that truly appeal to me. It's not limited to his parents' house. At larger family gatherings, such as parties or weddings, she does the same. She'll scowl at me from across the room before whispering to other relatives, pointing at and discussing me. If I try to approach her, she simply ignores me and walks away. It's so obvious, yet so degrading. It's not like she's hiding anything. She makes a point of physically turning away from me, letting everyone know that she rejects me. I noticed her at one party complimenting another relative's daughter-in-law, remarking how nice and conventional she was, all while utterly ignoring me. It felt as if she was trying to demonstrate to everyone how much superior this other woman was than me, simply because she was from the same nation as them. What's more annoying is that I know she speaks English fluently. She is a kindergarten teacher, therefore she has to. She purposefully speaks in her native language to exclude me, making me feel like an outsider in my own fiancé's family. It's as if she utilizes language barriers as a weapon. I recognize that if I truly wanted to connect with my fiancé on a deeper level, I needed to better grasp his culture, including his language. I wanted to be able to share that aspect of his life with him. I figured it would bring us closer. I chose to study his original language. I intended to keep it a secret from him. I anticipated surprising him one day by engaging in a lengthy conversation in his language. I wanted to see the expression on his face. I wanted him to know how much I cared, so I truly dedicated myself to studying the language. I spent 5 months working on it virtually every day. I looked up every resource I could find online, including YouTube videos and language study programs. I practiced speaking aloud, hoping to get the pronunciation correct. I focused on being able to hold a conversation rather than just acquiring a few phrases here and there. My major motivation was to communicate with and surprise my fiancé, but to be fully honest, a part of me wanted to know exactly what his mother was saying about me. And well, I began to understand. It wasn't easy, but after a few months, I was able to understand more of what Mom was saying at family events, or when she thought I wasn't listening. I pretended I didn't comprehend anything around her. I just stayed quiet and listened. And what did I hear? It was devastating. It was far worse than I had imagined. All the little comments, murmurs, and laughing were so cruel and intimate. I recall when my fiancé informed his mother that we were engaged. We were in the car and he had her on loudspeaker. She instantly began ranting about how he was marrying a white woman and how their ancestors would be rolling in their graves. The phrase rolling in their graves made me feel as if I was doing something wrong just by existing. It felt greater than just her dislike for me, like I was going against years of tradition. She stated she was having trouble accepting me. Then she said that if he had to marry a white lady, she wished he had selected someone more homely. She claimed I was too modern to be a decent mother. My fiancé, of course, defended me, but she would not stop. She acknowledged as much. She'll probably raise our grandchildren to be spoiled and disrespectful, unlike children raised in our culture. She's completely unfit to be a mother in our family. That one really hurt. Later, when we went to see his parents to start talking about wedding plans, his father was overjoyed for us. You could feel it on his face. But what about his mother? She was as disapproving as always. While we were there, she began ranting in her own language at my fiancé and his father, but this time I got everything. She was wishing my fiancé would reconsider the marriage, claiming that an astrologer had foretold a black hole in the family because of me and that I was infertile. She began fussing about how many of my white relatives would attend the wedding and even recommended removing people from my guest list. My fiancé declined, and they had a heated disagreement. I just stood there, crushed, and knew exactly what she was saying. To top it all off, she lied to my father-in-law, stating I had been bragging about how much more money I made than my fiancé in an attempt to make me appear terrible. It was all so unfair and untrue. I thought wedding dress shopping might be a good bonding experience, so I invited my future mother-in-law as well as my mother and sister to join me. I was hoping it would be an opportunity for us to connect and have a good day together. Proved to be anything but that. She was terrible. She made a critical comment about every dress I tried on. She'd roll her eyes, make passive-aggressive comments, and basically make me feel bad. What is the worst part? When I discovered a dress that I simply adored, I felt lovely wearing it. My mother and sister were in tears, telling me how beautiful I looked. What about my potential mother-in-law? She simply looked at me and exclaimed in her native language that it was horrible. I completely understood her. My mother and sister were swooning over me, telling me how beautiful I looked, while his mother kept picking on every dress. It was such a striking contrast. I was surrounded by affection, but I could feel daggers being flung my way. And it wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. She was deliberately attempting to destroy a good time for me. I walked to the restroom briefly, and while I was gone, she began insulting my body in front of my sister. She remarked the clothes didn't fit me well and made other disparaging remarks. I tried to keep it together. However, I ended up crying in the dressing room. It wasn't just sadness. It was fury, frustration, and everything. All of my efforts to be kind seemed to be in vain. It was a moment when I felt absolutely defeated. I kept questioning myself why I was even trying. After that day at the dress shop, I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I couldn't keep letting her abuse me like this, but I didn't want to just yell at her or start a fight. I wanted something more meaningful. I wanted her to understand how much she had hurt me. So I started thinking about the wedding, and then I got this thought. What if I embarrassed her in front of everyone? I understand it sounds horrible, but after everything she'd put me through, I felt I deserved to give her a taste of her own medicine. I intended to punish her once and for all. But then I started to question myself. I'm gonna Reddit. Would I be the a-hole if I went ahead with this? Update 1. Wow, thank you very much for your comments and recommendations. I sincerely appreciate all of the encouragement and humor. This made me feel a lot less alone in this circumstance. I wanted to clarify a few points based on some of the comments I've seen. First and foremost, I want to make it clear that my fiancé has always stood up for me. He's been tremendously helpful since the beginning. He confronts his mother when she is disrespectful, and he always comforts me when I am unhappy. He is genuinely my rock, and I could not ask for a greater companion. I want everyone to know that he is completely on my side in all of this. He's not enabling her conduct. He's actively opposing it. What about my potential mother-in-law? I suppose the simplest way to characterize her is as a cruel old woman. I don't believe she is particularly racist in a wide sense. I believe she has an issue with me specifically. It is personal. She wanted her son to marry someone from her own background, and I didn't fit the bill. I want to make it obvious that all of this is coming from her. It is not a reflection of her culture or community. I've read requests to report her to the school where she works, but I'm not going to do so. I do not want to ruin her career. I might be furious and hurt, but I don't want to get to that level. Her issue is with me specifically, and it is not fair to punish her professionally for something that occurred in our personal lives. I just want to deal with this situation directly and without inflicting any needless damage. Update 2. Hello again, everyone. I'm writing from my honeymoon. We're blissfully married. I wanted to give you all an update because I've received so many messages and requests. We've been celebrating our love and, let's just say, a little sweet revenge. The wedding day has finally arrived. Everything was gorgeous, and I was overjoyed to be marrying the love of my life. When it came time to deliver speeches, I decided to try something unusual. I began in English, thanking all of our friends and families for being there to celebrate our momentous day. Then I switched to my husband's native tongue. You should have seen the expressions on everyone's faces, particularly my husband and his family. They were completely shocked. I could see my husband's eyes tear up. I thanked his family in their native language for welcoming me, though in my mother-in-law's case, this wasn't quite true at the moment. But I was building towards something. I explained to them that studying their language was my wedding gift to my husband, a way for me to show him how much I loved him and cherished his culture. He was so moved that he came over and kissed me in the middle of his speech. Then I focused my attention on his father. I thanked him again in his original tongue for his generosity and genuine warmth. And then I turned to face my mother-in-law. I thanked her sarcastically for her rejection. I told everyone in her own tongue about all of the insults, attempts to exclude me, and nasty things she had said and done. I told them about the heinous insult she made regarding my wedding outfit. I explained how she informed everyone that I was infertile. I could see her face growing redder and redder. She was obviously embarrassed. I continued, I also want to publicly address the false claim my mother-in-law made about me bragging about my income. I replied that this was a pure fiction intended to make me appear bad in front of her family. She was complete rubbish and a piece of garbage that had been picked up from a dumpster. After discussing the specifics of what my mother-in-law had done, I extended the message, still speaking in her own tongue. I stated that skin color and ethnicity should not be considered when it comes to love. I emphasized how much effort I had put into learning their language and adopting my husband's culture, since it was vital to me to be involved in all aspects of his life. Then I explained how my mother-in-law's behavior, her isolation and degrading remarks, had only served to widen the distance. I looked at her straight and calmly warned her that if her behavior persisted, she would have no access to any future children we might have. I made it clear that I would not tolerate my children being subjected to such hatred and discrimination. My hubby was really proud of me. He subsequently told me that he had never felt greater love for me than in that moment when I stood up for myself and our future. I simply ignored my mother-in-law for the remainder of the evening. I did not want to satisfy her with any more replies. She, on the other hand, was visibly enraged. She began arguing with my father-in-law and husband. Eventually, she stormed away. My husband stated he was confident she would think twice about disrespecting me again. But the nicest part was the reaction of other relatives. Many of them approached me afterwards, complimenting my language skills and expressing how thoughtful it was of me to learn their language. They told me how much this meant to them. For the first time, I felt like I belonged, that I was a true member of the family. I thoroughly loved the remainder of the wedding and had a strong sense of empowerment. I believe I proved my point and received the vengeance I sought. I felt as if a big weight had been lifted. Update 3. Hello again, everyone. We just returned from our honeymoon, and I had a lot of voicemails from my mother-in-law. My husband indicated he would support anything I decided to do, whether I called her back or ignored her entirely. Honestly, my first thought was to ignore the calls. I was still upset and angry, and I wasn't sure if I was prepared to talk to her. But after some thought, I decided to give her one last shot. I called her back and we decided to meet. When I saw her, she appeared different. She was nervous and appeared apologetic. Then, for the first time, she issued an official apology. She stated that she was really angry after the wedding, specifically after my speech, but that she had some time to contemplate. She stated that a number of relatives had called her out on her behavior, which made her realize how terribly she had acted. She stated that she had treated me harshly and unfairly. She recognized that I had made a genuine attempt to embrace their culture, learning the language and all. She made no particular apologies for the worst things she had said, such as calling my clothing awful or claiming I was infertile. That bit was somewhat skimmed over, which I noticed, but it was a general apology, and it appeared honest. She added that my husband is her only kid and that she has always been quite protective of him. She stated that she had always imagined him marrying someone from their home country and that she struggled to accept me since I did not fit her expectations. She apologized for making me feel uncomfortable and pledged to be more tolerant. I calmly listened to what she said before accepting her apology. I told her I wanted to move on and try to improve our relationship. I admired her candor and willingness to attempt to change. However, I made it plain that I had some doubts. It's not like everything is instantaneously fine now. This is more of a cautious step forward, and while I'm hopeful she'll change, I'm not completely persuaded. After the apology, we actually began talking, albeit in her native tongue. She told me stories of my husband when he was a little boy, and it felt good, like we were finally connecting, perhaps for the first time. I could tell she was trying, so I decided to try too. There were still some little issues, such as her avoidance of staring me direct in the eye for too long, which suggested she wasn't totally at ease yet. Then there was one time when I prepared supper, and she tried to compliment me, but it came off as a little backhanded. She said, "This dish is actually quite good for a white person's attempt. It's almost as good as how we make it." It was better than an insult, I suppose, but it still had a sting to it. I understand that this upgrade may not meet everyone's expectations. Some of you undoubtedly wanted me to cut her off totally or continue the feud, but I believe I made my point at the wedding. I stood up for myself and told her in front of everyone that her actions were unacceptable. Right now, all I want is a drama-free family life. I want to move forward with enthusiasm and give this a genuine shot to be a new beginning. I believe her own family's reaction was what finally convinced her to rethink her mind. She claimed that many relatives called her after the wedding to tell her she was in the wrong. I believe she eventually recognized how biased and unfair she had been. But, and this is key, I understand how difficult it is to break old habits. I am giving her the benefit of the doubt. I am willing to try, but one incorrect move, one return to old rudeness, and the trust will be broken. I will not hesitate to defend myself again if necessary. I hope for the best. We'll see how this goes. My spouse and I deserve to live happy and tranquil lives. Therefore, let us pray for that. So that is where things stand. My mother-in-law and I had a heart-to-heart and are ready to try to start over. I will keep you all updated. I have big news for everyone. I am pregnant. My husband and I are very pleased to begin this new chapter in our life. We can't wait to meet our little one, and I am pleased to say that my relationship with my mother-in-law has continued to improve. Our relationship has undergone a significant positive adjustment. She is a lot more accepting and friendly to me now. She genuinely spends time with me, offers to help with things, and even gives me advice. Some of it unsolicited, of course, but I'll accept it. I attempt to reciprocate by being understanding and upfront with her. Both my mother and mother-in-law have been wonderful. They both check in on me on a frequent basis to ensure that everything is going well. They've even worked together to help us set up the baby's nursery. It's lovely to see them bond like that. We actually feel like we're forming one huge, joyful family. However, there are still small reminders that things are not perfect. We were talking about baby names the other day, and I suggested a few that I thought were cute. My mother-in-law scoffed and said, "Those sound so American. Wouldn't you want something a little more cultured?" It was a minor remark disguised as a suggestion, but it still hurt a little. It's as if those old biases are still present, just below the surface. My husband continues to be extremely supportive. He's relieved to see his mother making an effort, and he's as excited about the baby as I am. What about my father-in-law? He has been wonderful. He's building a baby rocker for the nursery and has already promised to build a treehouse for the little one when they grow up. I am deeply grateful for his love and support. Overall, things are significantly better than they were before. I'm optimistic about the future and hope that my relationship with my mother-in-law will continue to improve. I'm looking forward to a future full of love and, hopefully, no more drama. Everyone seems to be in a much better mood right now. We're very excited about our little one. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My sister demands I postpone my wedding for her divorce recovery. Parents skip my big day and toss out my belongings. My whole family is upset with me. My name is Lexi, and I am 27. Please listen to my story before passing judgment on me. Rose, my 32-year-old sister, was divorced a few months ago. I've been making an effort to support her during this difficult time. However, Rose and I have never been close, if I'm being completely honest. Her vast sisterhood was lacking for years. She and her small circle of friends tormented me, and my parents did nothing to stop it. In my family, I always felt alienated. Let's fast forward to Rose's divorce a few months ago. She's been a complete mess. She had to return to live with our parents since she was unemployed. It didn't matter to me because I don't see my parents or Rose very frequently, and we are not close. The problem is that I always felt like the odd one out, even as a child. The golden child was Rose. My parents loved her, and she did everything perfectly. Straight A's, prom queen, Ms. Popular. In the meantime, I was the challenging, disobedient one. I got into fights, disobeyed curfews, colored my hair in outrageous hues, and more. The way Rose used to make me feel, however, was the worst. Not only would she harass me, but it seemed like she made a conscious effort to keep me out of her plans with her friends. In front of me, she made sure I knew I wasn't wanted at school by spreading untruths about me. Then there was the response, or lack thereof, from my folks. They always stood behind Rose, no matter what she did. It stung a lot, and I carried that bitterness into adulthood. I recall telling them once about the things she said to me, and they dismissed it with the comment, "Oh, that's just how sisters are." However, my 29-year-old partner, Joshua, proposed to me approximately a month following my sister's divorce. It was among the most joyful times of my life. After all, I had been anticipating this for some time. After nearly 4 years of dating, Joshua and I had discussed marriage frequently. Therefore, it seemed as though everything was coming together when he eventually proposed. Even though my parents and I weren't particularly close, I notified them right away, of course. Perhaps, just possibly, this could be something that would unite us, I thought. Almost immediately, I went into wedding planning mode, thinking about venues, clothes, flowers, and all the other details. Sharing this time with my friends and the few members of my family that I truly get along with made me very happy. However, a few weeks later, my mother called. She told me they needed to talk to me about something significant, and she sounded serious. To be honest, my initial assumption was that it might have something to do with Rose and her entire mess after the divorce. I simply got a feeling that something bad was going to happen, so kind of expecting the worst, I headed to their place the following evening. And sure enough, my mom revealed it as soon as I sat down. They wanted me to delay my wedding by 2 years, she informed me. Yes, 2 years, as Rose had recently gone through a divorce. What I was hearing was unbelievable. My sister's divorce caused my wedding to be postponed? I thought she must be kidding because it was so ridiculous that I briefly burst out laughing. She was dead serious, though. She clarified that Rose needed time to heal and possibly find another partner because she was still devastated. It seems like my wedding would get in the way of it. I questioned my mother if she was serious as I sat there in shock. How could she possibly believe that Rose's romantic life was connected to my wedding? Rose's poor choices were intended to cause my wedding, one of the most important days of my life, to be postponed. "We are family, and we need to support each other," was the famous line my mother used to strike me. She has said this to me countless times. Always it's about standing by Rose. They seem to want me to be this quiet, helpful person in the background who always prioritizes her needs. I was unable to control my anger. I told my mother that I couldn't believe she had the audacity to ask me such a question and that this was really absurd. Then I simply walked away. I didn't want to be there and hear more of their guilt-tripping and justification. However, it didn't end there. Over the course of the following few days, my mother called me often to reassure me that this was the appropriate course of action and that the family as a whole, not just Rose, was at stake. She insisted on bringing up the unfairness of Rose attending my wedding while still going through her divorce. However, when was life ever fair? Just because one individual is experiencing something doesn't mean that things stop. It's not as if I'm attempting to make Rose feel unhappy. All I want is to marry Joshua and begin a life together. My dad also became involved, which surprised me because he often stays out of this kind of drama. Using Rose's current emotional state and the fact that my wedding would be too much for her to take, he attempted to reason with me. He gave the impression that she would be severely burdened by my wedding, as though my joy would somehow make her even more unhappy. Again, though, I fail to see how it is my issue. I can't stop my life, especially to save her feelings, and I can't control how she feels. My parents continued to phone and harass me for days after that. I knew there would be more of the same guilt trip over delaying the wedding every time I saw their name appear on my phone. I must admit that I was growing impatient with them. In contrast, my sister had not spoken to me at all. I was starting to question whether this was truly what Rose desired or whether my parents were simply projecting their own problems onto me because it was all coming from them. I, therefore, made the decision to take matters into my own hands and give Rose a call directly after a week or so of this back and forth. At first, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I was really calm. I questioned her directly if my parents were overreacting or if she was the one who set them up for this. At that point, she verified it. Yes, she did believe that delaying the wedding would be preferable. What was she thinking? She claimed that all of the relatives would question her about the divorce during the wedding and that she wasn't prepared for that kind of scrutiny. I was taken aback. We were discussing the wedding, which was one of the most important days of my life. Even though I know divorce is a significant matter, why should her concerns about what others might think of her take precedence over my wedding? I politely explained to her that this was my wedding, and that I didn't think anyone would be bothering her about something so private at a gathering that was meant to be about Joshua and me. Let's face it, people are too preoccupied with the wedding of the couple, the cuisine, the dancing, and their personal life to pay any attention to anything else at the event. At my wedding, of all places, who is going to approach Rose and intrusively inquire about her failed marriage? Naturally, though, she refused to listen. She insisted repeatedly that she wasn't emotionally ready to deal with everyone, and that if I truly cared about her, I would think about holding off until she was more resilient and able to take the attention. I became more irate the more she said. At last, I simply explained everything to her. I informed her that whether she or our parents attended or not, the wedding would take place regardless of her feelings. She was insecure about people asking her awkward questions, but I wasn't going to let that stop me from living my life. I didn't have to cope with that. She did. I immediately contacted my folks and told them the same thing once I hung up. "Look, I love you all, but I'm not delaying the wedding," I remarked. "It would be wonderful if you could lend me your support. If not, I can understand, but whether you are present or not, the wedding is taking place as expected." My mother broke down in tears and said that Rose needed time to recover and that I was destroying the family. However, I had already made up my mind by then. I had no intention of giving up. 3 weeks ago, the wedding did take place. Joshua and I got married, and it was lovely. I won't lie, it was difficult to walk down the aisle by myself even though my parents weren't there. I had dreamed about that moment all my life, and I always saw my father being there. As I approached Joshua, I could see that broad smile light up his face. I realized that I was just doing this for Joshua and myself, not for my parents, Rose, or anybody else. And to be honest, that was sufficient. I was content with my choice. My closest friends and those who genuinely support us were all around me. After the ceremony, things became a little more tricky. When we arrived at the reception, the majority of my relatives, including some aunts, uncles, and cousins who had not been involved in the drama, had arrived. However, they took note. They were definitely curious when they saw that my parents weren't present. "Where are your mom and dad? Is everything okay?" People began to inquire. I was aware that I would eventually have to explain the entire complex situation. I initially made an effort to sidestep the inquiries so as not to turn the day into a family drama, but the questions kept pouring. I eventually sat down with some of my aunts and cousins and told them everything, including how my parents had insisted that I postpone the wedding, how they wanted me to put Rose's needs before my own, and how they ultimately decided not to attend when I refused to comply. I didn't mince words. I had had enough of acting as though nothing was wrong. They responded with a mixture of amazement and incredulity. Some of them were upset on my behalf, while others were appalled that my parents would even ask such a foolish question. Being able to finally tell my side of the story felt like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. To be honest, it was nice to have some of my family members comprehend the difficulties I had been facing. More individuals heard the story as the evening wore on, and by the conclusion of the evening, it was essentially well known. Something unexpected happened. Instead of the criticism I had anticipated, the other members of the family began to shun my parents. It seemed as though the entire situation had made people realize how they had been treating me for years, prioritizing Rose and expecting me to always take a back seat to her. People started contacting me to offer their support, saying things like, "You did the right thing by standing your ground," and "I had no idea it was this bad." Then something even more bizarre occurred. Our cousin, who is getting married next month, sent out an invitation to her wedding without inviting my parents. It seems that on her own special day, she didn't want that kind of hatred. That was completely unexpected, and I feel a little bad about it. However, I can't help but feel validated at the same time. I felt alienated for years, as though I was the one who was constantly making trouble or not being sympathetic enough. However, people were finally beginning to realize that perhaps, just possibly, it wasn't entirely my fault. Joshua and I took a week-long honeymoon after my wedding, and it was quite honestly the nicest getaway I could have ever imagined. Away from all the family drama, we traveled alone to this lovely beach resort. For the most part, I just enjoyed the silence without checking my phone. I was aware that my parents and most likely my sister would send me messages, but I was unable to handle them while on the honeymoon. It was time for us to unwind and begin this new chapter stress-free. Reality struck me hard once we returned. I made the decision to listen to the voicemails that had accumulated for a while. To be honest, I wasn't expecting what I heard. Rather than attempting to resolve the issue or simply have a polite chat, my parents' communications were rife with profanity. Among other colorful names, my mother dubbed me an entitled brat. My father spoke in a similar tone, even going so far as to say that I was destroying the family. It was really nasty, not just angry. The allegations of selfishness, the guilt trips, and the passive-aggressive comments were all too much. I initially chose to ignore the messages in the hopes that they would stop after a few days. But that didn't work out. Actually, the situation just got worse. They increased the frequency of their calls and left voicemails full of the same poisonous nonsense. They started contacting me via Facebook, Instagram, and email after I banned their numbers. They didn't let up. After being silent since the wedding, my sister suddenly spoke up and sent me lengthy letters accusing me of ruining the family by prioritizing Joshua and my happiness over maintaining the family's togetherness. To be honest, it was rather draining. They even began using several phone numbers at one point in order to avoid being blacklisted. After I blocked one number, they would return with another in a few hours. I had the impression that I was playing a perverse game of whack-a-mole, except that toxic family members who couldn't accept no were the moles. To be honest, I became quite irritated. When your own relatives simply won't leave you alone, what do? They would always find a way to drag me back into the drama if I attempted to stand back and concentrate on my personal life. They seemed unable to accept that I was content without them and that I no longer required their continual affirmation or approval. I discussed it with Joshua, and he has been really encouraging. He made suggestions ranging from deleting all communication to altering my phone number. However, a part of me is really torn. They're still my parents. Despite everything they've said and done, I still feel horrible for shutting them out, which makes me feel like the evil guy. However, I am aware that I cannot continue to allow them to abuse me in this manner. They refused to listen to me when I tried to explain how their actions were impacting me. My mother used classic emotional manipulation when she said things like, "You're choosing your husband over your own family, and you'll regret this when we're gone." I don't even believe they're interested in hearing my side of the story at this time. It seems as though they are merely trying to regain control over me because they are angry that I have deviated from their authority and are making every effort to entice me back. To be honest, I don't know what to do. A part of me feels that I should just stop talking to them altogether. Change my phone number, remove them from social media, and stop communicating altogether. I'll regret it, though, according to this persistent voice at the back of my head, that one day I'll regret how I handled things, or that perhaps, just possibly, they'll change their ways and see how poisonous their actions have been. Let's face it, though, how likely is that to actually occur? They won't alter based on what I've observed thus far. If anything, they appear to be stepping up their efforts, claiming that I have betrayed them by defending myself. I can't continue to live this way, always being cautious and anticipating the next round of messages filled with guilt. I need some guidance, Reddit. What can I do to make this stop at last? Has anyone else experienced the same thing with family members that would not quit bothering them? How did you respond to it? Is avoiding touch the ideal course of action in this situation? Or is there a medium ground that I haven't considered yet? They just won't go away. Even though I feel like I've tried everything, my family seems intent on keeping me stuck in this cycle of duty and guilt, even though I want to go on with my life and concentrate on my marriage. I would appreciate any guidance. Update 1. Hello everyone. I thought I'd give you some further history on my family dynamic because many of you have been inquiring about my childhood. To be honest, there isn't a particularly noteworthy incident or time that made me understand my family wasn't supporting me. The fact that I was growing up in a home where I didn't feel understood or supported emotionally came to me more gradually. It's difficult to explain without coming across as ungrateful because, in theory, my parents fulfilled their obligations. I had clothes and food, attended school, and occasionally had family holidays. However, I never experienced genuine affection or value. My parents were always far more concerned about my older sister, Rose, when I was growing up, not in the conventional sense of older sibling gets more responsibility. It seemed to them that I was the one who caused difficulty, the one they had to put up with, and Rose was innocent. When I tried to show them something I was enthusiastic about or bring home good marks, they would give me a half-hearted, "That's nice, Lexi," before going on to whatever Rose needed. I was only there, but she was always the focus of their attention. As a child, it's difficult to describe how alienating it is to be ignored and treated as though you're invisible, and that happened more than once throughout my early years. That pattern kept coming up. I believe I was 16 years old when I got into a heated argument with some of my school pals. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, one of those things that happens to teenagers. I cried when I got home, looking for some consolation or even some guidance. While a "hey, it'll be okay" moment would have been nice, I'm not claiming I was expecting a full-on therapy session. Rather, my dad stated quite literally, "You probably brought it on yourself. You should learn to pick better friends." When I told my parents about it, just blame, no embrace, no support. In the meantime, they would stop everything to assist Rose in resolving any problem she might have brought home. In addition, let's take a moment to discuss Rose. She wasn't exactly the epitome of an older sister who was helpful. In actuality, she essentially made it her mission to ruin my life whenever she could. She had a small group of pals who were all as conceited as she was, and they found it amusing to harass me. They would do things like hide my belongings, tease me about my attire, or even prank phone the house and say horrible things about me while posing as classmates. It was the sort of thing that, although it seems ridiculous now, seriously damaged my self-esteem when I was younger. What's the worst? My parents were aware of it. "She's just teasing you, Lexi, it's normal sibling stuff." People would respond when I explained what Rose was doing, but I never thought it was usual. When I was around 13, there was one really awful occurrence. I was persuaded to play a game of makeover with Rose and her friends. I should have known better, but I went along with it because I was so anxious for my sister's approval or attention. I looked like a clown when they applied makeup to my face in the most absurd way imaginable. Then, without my knowledge, they snapped photos and distributed them to classmates. Everyone laughed at me the following day. No reprimand for Rose, no pity for me. Just the same old thing with an attitude. When I came home crying, my parents just responded, "It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." In retrospect, I saw that these served as the foundation for my current relationship or lack thereof with my family. I worked for years to gain their acceptance and convince them that I was deserving of their love and care. However, it never succeeded. They didn't care about me or what I was going through since they were too preoccupied with Rose and her issues. To be honest, I believe that's the reason I've grown into the person I am now. Someone who has learned to be self-reliant and to defend myself when necessary. Because of this, I had previously felt disappointed by my family when the wedding situation arose. It was only the decisive moment. I had been the afterthought, the second choice, for years. It felt like the last straw when they requested that I postpone my wedding for Rose's sake. They seemed to have learned nothing from the several instances in which they prioritized her above me. They wanted me to continue playing the part one had always played, which was the one who put the family's togetherness ahead of her happiness. However, I was no longer able to accomplish that. To be honest, it feels like a big relief that I finally made the decision to choose myself. That's the main idea of my early years. Then there was a great deal of emotional neglect and favoritism that left its impact, but nothing particularly dramatic. I've taken a while to come to terms with the fact that I can prioritize my needs and that I don't have to put up with toxic behavior just because someone is family. Now that I have Joshua, we are creating our own small family where I feel respected, loved, and supported, things I didn't really experience as a child. Thank you for reading, and thank you to everyone who has contacted me with good comments and suggestions. It has a lot of meaning. I'm coming to see that even with family, it's acceptable to establish limits, even if it's difficult. I know I'm acting in my own best interests. Update 2. Hello everyone. A lot has happened since my last post, so I wanted to offer you all some updates. Unsurprisingly, my folks discovered a new method to irritate me. Around a week after Joshua and I returned from our honeymoon, I received a message from them requesting that I come pick up my childhood belongings on Sunday since they wanted them out of their home. I was pretty well over it by then, but the message was sudden and cold. I assumed I would simply go get my belongings and be done with it. I tried not to make a big deal out of it, so I simply said, "Okay," in response. However, what I witnessed when I drove there with Joshua for support was beyond absurd. My entire belongings were already on the grass, stacked like a garage sale that nobody was interested in purchasing, and not simply tucked away either. Everything appeared to have been thrown out carelessly, as though it had been left there for hours or perhaps days. Some of my old books were wet from being in the morning dew, and several of my old clothes and toys looked like they had been on the grass for a long time. Things I genuinely cared about, like emotional treasures and old photo albums, had some water stains on them. My belongings were merely collateral damage, as if they were eager to get rid of me. I was enraged. Who, after all, does that? It was about the obvious attempt, not even about the items. Even though I was furious, I knew they were waiting for me to lose it, to scream, to cry, or to demand answers. It was as if they were sending a message that said, "We're done with you." From the window, I could almost see my mother waiting for me to respond, and to be honest, I wasn't going to satisfy them. I so maintained my composure. Rather than losing it, with composure I turned to Joshua and requested him to assist me in packing the truck. We didn't knock on the door, talk to my parents, or ask for an explanation. Silently, we simply loaded the truck. Joshua helped me finish it without saying anything, but I believe he could tell I was holding back a lot. It was strange, though, since I became aware of something while we were packing everything up. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't devastated or heartbroken. All I felt was relief to completely end the chapter of my connection with my parents. This was the last thing I needed. Strangely enough, it felt significant. When they threw out my belongings in that manner, it seemed as though they were at last making it clear to me that I was no longer wanted in their lives. I no longer felt upset, but rather liberated from the guilt trips, the emotional games, and the continual pressure to fit in with a family that never truly made room for me. To be honest, I was more than willing to let it go since it felt like they were cutting the last tie. Update 3. Hi everyone. Even though it's been a few months, I had to tell you all about something crazy that happened. So, do you recall Rose, my sister? The same sister that couldn't make it to my wedding because she was too depressed and grieved after her divorce? Yes, she is getting married next week. I'm not making this up, I promise. In fewer than 7 days, the lady who said it took her at least 2 years to move on and find a new man will walk down the aisle. The irony is excessive. Do you know how I learned about it? It came from one of our cousins. Not from her or my parents, who haven't spoken to me since the wedding fiasco. She forwarded me a screen grab of their social media engagement announcement. I was at home taking care of business when all of a sudden, there was Rose, looking cheerful and in love, flashing her ring to her new fiancé as if the drama of the previous year had never occurred. I had to chuckle. I couldn't even be mad at this point. It's really funny. Even stranger is the fact that neither Rose nor my parents have mentioned the situation at all. Nothing. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My parents always favored my adopted sister, even pushing me to combine my store opening with her graduation. This time, I got my revenge. I'm a 24-year-old male who grew up in what appeared to be a normal suburban middle-class family. But my parents' actions have caused me chronic suffering all of my life. Their entire reputation in our neighborhood was based on the fact that they were these wonderful people who, in all honesty, loved their adoptive daughter even more than their biological son. Few people are fully aware of the impact this had on me. My adopted sister, Emma, who was 3 at the time, was brought home by my parents when I was 6. Everything in my life changed on that day. I was ecstatic when my parents sat me down in our living room and discussed the possibility of adopting a sibling. Most afternoons, I waited for my parents to get home from work by playing games in our backyard by myself. The children in the area were either much older or younger than me, and I had no siblings with whom to play. It seemed like the ideal answer to have a sister with whom I could share my toys and hang out during those long days. It was just what I had hoped for. When Emma initially came, during those peaceful afternoons at home, we played together, had snacks, and I at last had someone to chat to. But over time, little shifts in my family's dynamics continued to accumulate. Emma became the center of my parents' attention, and they made all of their decisions with her best interests in mind. If Emma wasn't in the mood, they would postpone weekend family activities, modify dinner arrangements to suit her tastes, and rearrange their schedules so that they could attend all of Emma's school functions while missing mine. I began to feel marginalized in my own household, as if my parents were losing interest in me. There is more to this narrative than just sibling rivalry, even though I am aware that some may assume I'm just jealous. There was a noticeable difference between Emma's and my parents' approaches to childcare. My mom quit her 8-year accounting job to become a full-time mother within a week after Emma's arrival. In contrast to when I was born, Mom returned to work as soon as her maternity leave ended, putting me in the care of different people. I spent most of my time at my grandparents' little apartment or with whatever teenage babysitter they could afford that month because my parents were constantly worried about money back then and worked extra and weekend shifts. The babysitting situation was anything but perfect. Instead of truly watching me, these sitters, who were mostly high school students looking for additional money, often saw their position as an opportunity to hang out with their partners. As they sat in the living room texting or chatting on their phones, I would spend hours by myself in my room. Sometimes, when they thought I was sleeping, their boyfriends would sneak in through the garage or climb through our rear window. My parents would terminate the present sitter after I repeatedly told them about these instances, then hire a new one who behaved similarly. This cycle persisted for years, and I felt that no one genuinely cared about my welfare during the majority of my early years. I believed that everything would improve when Emma arrived. I took my responsibilities as a big brother seriously, even though I was only 6. I gave her access to all of my toys and even assisted her in learning the letters as much as a 6-year-old could. It was good to have my mom at home all the time. I believed we would finally be able to do everything I saw other children doing with their mothers, such as going to the park or baking cookies. Rather, as the big brother, my mom expected me to be mature and self-sufficient while spending all of her time and energy on Emma, treating her like a princess. When my parents changed the plans for my birthday, things really started to get tricky. Emma's true birth date was unknown to the orphanage, and she had been discovered abandoned at a shopping mall. After conducting a number of tests, including dental work, developmental evaluations, and physical examinations, the doctors determined that she was around 3 years old at the time of her discovery. My parents decided that Emma should share my birthday, rather than keeping the date she was given at the orphanage or picking any other day of the year. They portrayed this concept as though it were a unique privilege for me. I began to notice small differences every year, but those early combined birthday celebrations were tolerable. Even though I continued to get gifts and eat some cake, Emma started to dominate the gatherings. Family, friends, and relatives would show up with twice as many presents for her, gushing about how wonderful it was that we celebrated together and hardly seeing me. Emma's backstory appeared to captivate everyone who treated her more like a queen than a mere child. As everyone gathered around Emma to listen to her recount the same adoption tale they had heard dozens of times before, I sat there silently opening my gifts, trying not to feel invisible at my own birthday celebration. I still find it annoying that my parents had Emma share my birthday. She was already officially given a date by the orphanage, the day she was discovered. We could have chosen any day that may have been Emma's special day, such as my aunt's birthday in September or my grandparents' anniversary in March. However, my parents purposely picked my birth date because they thought it would help Emma feel more a part of the family. The one special day of the year when they are the focus of attention for the majority of children is their birthday. However, my parents used this innocent youthful delight as just another reminder that Emma's needs came first. They concluded this choice with sentimental platitudes about sharing and family ties, which prevented a 6-year-old from expressing dissatisfaction without feeling self-centered. The only person who appeared to realize something was off was my uncle. During that first joint party, he drew me away to ask if I truly felt comfortable with everything. By the time I was 10, I no longer celebrated birthdays but loathed them. Emma was in charge of every step of our combined celebrations, from picking princess themes that made me feel uncomfortable at my own party to selecting a cake that I didn't even enjoy. The issue with the guest list was especially unfair because I was only allowed to invite 5 of my friends, but Emma would bring 20 or more from her different activities to our home. Because of this rule, I had to pick my friends carefully every year, which occasionally strained my bonds with those who were unable to go. After I was unable to invite my best buddy to my 11th birthday, we stopped communicating for weeks. When I wanted to invite a 6th buddy one year, the inequity of these parties became even more apparent. My parents denied the request right away, claiming that our home could already host as many people as possible. Emma's pals and their mothers, who needed to supervise their daughters at all times, were able to find space nonetheless. My parents used their go-to justification that girls require extra supervision to brush off my worries when I brought up the fact that my pals arrived alone. Emma's friends and their mothers, meanwhile, occupied our entire living room and treated me like a guest at what should have been my birthday. On multiple occasions, I plucked up the nerve to propose holding separate parties. Every time I tried, my parents would cut me off with prepared answers about Emma's challenging past. They would bring up her terrible beginning in life for the 100th time, utterly disregarding the fact that they were making a difficult present for me by consistently denying my feelings. Or they would tell me that she didn't know her true birthday, as if that somehow justified taking over mine. I always felt bad about bringing up the topic in these chats, as if I were being selfish for wanting a date to myself. I eventually gave up arguing over my birthday, in what had become Emma's special day, featuring her brother. I learned to put on a smile and play my part. The pain persisted. It simply became a recurring emotion on each birthday. Emma unwrapped twice as many presents than I did during these parties, and I would sit silently in the corner and try to look joyful while family members swooned over her and hardly acknowledged me. Finding my passion for making things with my hands was the one silver lining in all of this. Making a pencil holder out of an empty cereal box one dull afternoon was the beginning. Before long, I was turning a variety of everyday objects into works of art. Bins of gathered material such as broken jewelry, plastic bottles, and old newspapers, anything I could repurpose, filled our garage, which became my go-to spot. I watched do-it-yourself videos for hours on end, learning new ways to make everything from elaborate jewelry to gorgeous wall hangings. My works, which were solely mine and which Emma was unable to share or take over, gradually filled my room. By my early 20s, what began as a therapeutic pastime in my teens had developed into a lucrative internet business. I worked a day job at a local coffee shop and spent many hours improving product images, writing descriptions, and running my online store. Social media users began taking notice of my handcrafted goods, and soon I had loyal clients from all across the nation. With cabinets brimming with supplies and a special shipping station in what should have been my dining room, my tiny apartment was transformed into a workshop. My funds ultimately allowed me to create my own physical store after 3 years of meticulous financial planning, working overtime, and reinvesting nearly every penny of earnings. I discovered the ideal location: a former boutique with exposed brick walls and lots of windows in a bustling shopping area. 2 months ago, I signed the lease, and in my free time, I designed exhibits, planned the store layout, and planned a grand opening event. This was meant to be my chance to shine, to prove to everyone that the boy who sat in the corner on his birthdays had accomplished something meaningful. I even engaged a local photographer to capture the entire occasion. My folks reacted in a predictable way when I told them about the store opening. After 5 minutes or so of their seeming excitement, my mother revealed that Emma was graduating from college at the same time. They suggested that we combine the opening party with Emma's graduation celebration before I had even finished outlining my preparations. My dad nodded as though this was the most sensible notion ever, and my mom remarked, "Think about it. We can invite everyone once instead of making them come to 2 separate events." The irony of attempting to combine my milestone with Emma once more went unnoticed by them. I declined right away, stating that I wanted my accomplishment to be the main focus of this celebration. When I resisted, my parents seemed surprised, as if they didn't understand why I wouldn't want to share this moment with them. Using their tried-and-true guilt-tripping strategies of making things easy for everyone, they persisted in pressuring me, accusing me of being selfish and challenging. They used the same expressions they had used when I was a child: "It's only one day," and "Why can't you be more understanding?" But this time was different. I had worked alone for years to establish this business, staying up late to fulfill orders, interacting with challenging clients, and learning every aspect of business management by making mistakes. I firmly said that this event would exclusively be about the debut of my store. They were no longer successful in making me feel bad. My parents became irate and said they might not attend the opening at all. When they saw that I wasn't going to back down, I told them that was their decision. For the first time in my life, I was left feeling bewildered and frustrated by the entire event. Instead of being proud and encouraging, they were attempting to minimize my achievement by making it about Emma once more. Here I was, their kid, accomplishing something important all by myself. They didn't think I deserved a celebration of my own, even though I was an adult with my own company. I was no longer a 6-year-old who could be persuaded to share his wonderful day, but the same patterns from my early years were reoccurring. Regardless of who came to celebrate, I made the decision that my store opening would be my time alone. Update 1. I got hundreds of answers after venting my unhappiness online, but one message in particular truly resonated with me. My parents had unwittingly given me the ideal opportunity for retaliation, someone pointed out. The more I considered it, the more obvious it became. A college graduation would inevitably be eclipsed by the opening of my business, especially when I could give everyone first dibs on my merchandise. Directly beneficial things always pique people's curiosity more. I agreed to my parents' proposal in a message rather than continuing to oppose the combined celebration. I informed them that I had changed my mind and that I believed they were correct to gather everyone for a single large celebration. My parents were ecstatic at my seeming change of heart, likely believing that their guilt trips had won me over once more. I continued to be cooperative throughout all of the planning sessions, nodding in agreement as they talked about food possibilities and decoration ideas. As I had anticipated, my parents took full charge of organizing the celebration. They planned the catering, made arrangements with all of our family members and guests, and reserved a pricey location, all in keeping with Emma's graduation theme. Every choice, including the color scheme and the kind of music to be played, was created with Emma's preferences in mind. The invitation card served as the last piece of evidence that I had made the proper choice. The phrase, "Celebrating Emma's graduation," was printed across the top of these ornate, gold-bordered cards. Nowhere, not even in the small print at the bottom, was my store announcement mentioned. This was exactly what I had planned, but my parents undoubtedly believed I would be unhappy. Everyone in attendance would be completely taken aback by my revelation because they were focused on Emma's accomplishment. During those weeks, I worked quietly to finish the details of my store debut and prepare my own contents. My parents had invited almost everyone, so the party location was just what you would anticipate. I couldn't have timed my announcement more perfectly. The bartender noticed me and gave me a fresh glass of champagne just after all the remarks but before the cake cutting. As I got up, everyone's eyes were on me, presumably anticipating another homage to Emma. While my parents were busy welcoming guests, I worked with the venue personnel to create my promotional materials earlier. I didn't need sentimental appeals or flowery wording. My declaration was direct. I just said that next month, after years of developing my online business, I will establish my first physical location. Groups gathered around me in a matter of minutes as people inquired about the store's location, the goods I would be carrying, and the exclusive deals I would be providing to friends and relatives. My aunt was now showing everyone photos of my products on her phone after she had just completed speaking about Emma's academic accomplishments. There was a noticeable difference between my parents' private and public responses. As family members congratulated me, they forced smiles and nodded in agreement, maintaining their typical flawless demeanor in front of the guests throughout the evening. However, I could sense the stress in their body language. My dad's jaw tightening whenever someone brought up my store, and my mom's hands trembling a little while she served cake. Emma disappeared from her own graduation celebration shortly after her champagne toast failed, and hardly anyone listened to her rehearsed speech about her time in college. My mom's facade eventually broke when the last relative left and the caterers started to clear up. The mom who had taught me to share the spotlight for years confronted me and accused me of spoiling her daughter's graduation celebration. Calmly, I stated my stance, stating that I just announced my business as scheduled and that this joint celebration was their idea, not mine. My father's response demonstrated the extent of their partiality. He jumped right to blaming me of jealousy, rather than admitting that they had been treated unfairly for years. I had seen this trend since I was a little child. Any attempt to assert my own space was viewed as selfish or envious. After 20 years of holding back, I finally said it. I detailed every celebration, birthday, and moment that had been appropriated and turned into Emma's unique time. For once, I was just expressing the facts about their behavior pattern and wasn't requesting sympathy or compassion. My parents resorted to their standard defensive tactic, making the same claims they had made all through my early years. They brought up Emma's terrible beginning, her desertion, and the fact that she didn't know her biological family, which made her need further help. These were the same excuses I'd heard at every family get-together, school function, and birthday where my needs had been neglected. However, I didn't feel bad about what they said this time. I had worked with my therapist for years to process these emotions, realizing that their actions were motivated by their desire to be viewed as saviors rather than Emma's needs. We were all unaware that Emma had come back to the location and was waiting in the doorway. When we confronted her, putting on the dramatic show that had always worked so well for her, she rushed into the room with mascara streaming down her face. She blamed me, saying that I was envious of her position in the family and had always detested her. In actuality, I had spent my early years attempting to be the ideal big brother, giving up my personal space and festivities, all the while being informed that it was never enough. Instead of being the recipient of our parents' unrelenting favoritism, she was now behaving as though she had been the target of my anger. The days after the celebration demonstrated how ingrained my parents' partiality was. They concentrated only on Emma's injured feelings, ignoring the ways in which their actions had exacerbated the problem. They contacted me over and over again, requesting not just an apology but also that I pay for Emma's vacation so she could get over the stress. Their request was quite ridiculous. They wanted me to pay Emma thousands of dollars only because people were genuinely interested in my business success rather than Emma's graduation. They demanded that I give them my hard-earned money so they could pay for Emma's vacation after she felt overshadowed at one party. My answer to their demands was straightforward. I left. I was done playing their game. After years of attempting to be understanding and accommodating, my parents appeared surprised that, unlike so many times in the past, I wouldn't give in and apologize right away. Their trump card had usually been Emma's tears, but they weren't working this time. Nothing would ever change, as evidenced by their inability to recognize the hypocrisy. Emma was furious over sharing attention at one occasion, but I had been forced to share or give up the spotlight at every celebration for 20 years. I had already attempted to discuss these matters with my family. I made several attempts to discuss my parents' partiality with them during my late teens and early 20s. I tried a variety of strategies, including polite conversations at family dinners, long emails outlining my emotions, and even suggested family therapy. The identical response was given to each attempt. Emma had a difficult start in life. This expression became their go-to justification for anything I said that hurt or irritated them. When I was 19, I sobbed as I talked about how lonely I felt at my own birthday parties during a particularly trying conversation. All my mother could do was remind me of Emma's desertion. I eventually came to terms with the fact that my parents couldn't see their own actions clearly after years of this habit. At the age of 21, I left their home and rented a modest apartment across town with the first earnings from my internet business. Our relationship has grown more surface level ever since. We occasionally visit one another at family get-togethers, send each other birthday greetings, and share significant life events. But there is no longer any genuine connection, no in-depth discussions or emotional exchanges. I've stopped expecting them to change or see things my way, but they still don't understand why I've separated myself and continue to blame me for not being more understanding of Emma's needs. Update 2. My parents surprised me with an even more absurd demand just when I thought they had had enough of the commotion surrounding the graduation party. They unexpectedly showed up at my flat prior to the big opening of my store. They sat uneasily on my couch at first, acting casual as they inquired about the store's preparations. However, they then disclosed their true motivation for coming. They wanted me to appoint Emma as the store manager. Their argument was that she shouldn't have to go through the typical job search process like everyone else because she had a college degree. They seemed to believe that I had a duty to give Emma a ready-made job because I had worked so hard to develop this company over the years. When my parents enumerated Emma's qualifications for running my store, the situation swiftly turned bizarre. My dad claimed that her primary qualifications were that she was pretty smart and had a general business degree, as if being physically attractive had anything to do with managing a retail establishment. I had studied customer service, inventory control, and company operations for years, but it seems that Emma's beauty outweighed all of that knowledge. My mom didn't hesitate to suggest that Emma should also cut the ribbon during the store opening when I mockingly inquired if they wanted me to do anything more for their precious daughter. What was she thinking? Emma might feel less important at the graduation celebration, but it would make up for it, they believed. Emma deserved more publicity, therefore they wanted me to give a management position in my company to someone who had no retail expertise and allow her to serve as the face of my store opening. However, this was no longer about birthday celebrations or toy swapping. This was my source of income, my career accomplishment, and something I had created on my own without their assistance. They reacted to my rejection in the same way they had always done, by manipulating my emotions. The guilt trips came first, followed by charges of selfishness and threats. With the same firmness that she had used to make me share my birthdays, my mom offered them an ultimatum. Either I give Emma what she wanted or they wouldn't come to the store opening. Emma's arrogant expression as they threatened me informed me that she expected me to comply, just as I always did. They were all startled when I instructed them not to come at all and agreed to their requirements instead. Even without my immediate family present, the store opening surpassed all of my expectations. The room was crowded with my extended family, devoted clients from my internet business, and encouraging friends. I told my family members the truth without feeling ashamed or sorry when they nervously inquired about my parents' absence. Some expressed sympathy while others were uneasy, but I didn't care about controlling other people's emotions in relation to my family's circumstances. After opening for several months, my store is doing quite well. Expecting me to come apologizing like I had so many times before, my parents tried their customary silent treatment, but now their silence is peaceful instead of terrible. To fit their idea of the ideal family, I no longer feel the need to shrink myself. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My friends are chipping in each for my wedding gift after I spent thousands on theirs. Am I the a-hole for implying they're being cheap? Original post. Throwaway because I know my friends use Reddit. I, 38F, am marrying my fiancé, 38M, next year. I'm the last of my friends to get married, and honestly, I've made my peace with being single and getting a dog before I met my fiancé. I am part of a group of 6 girlfriends who have all known each other since college. We've been through everything together. Breakups, holidays, weddings, babies, promotions. When I told them I got engaged, they seemed happy and sent me congratulatory messages. But when everyone else got engaged, they threw parties or went out for dinner to celebrate. They didn't in my case. I gave them nearly a year's notice on my bachelorette party, which I'm keeping low-key as I don't want a big thing. We're going for dinner and drinks at one of my favorite restaurants in our city. However, slowly all of my friends have been dropping out, saying they can't get a babysitter or they have to work late or they're on a work trip. I've obviously invited them all to the wedding as well, which again is a small affair, and one has already messaged the group chat saying she's not sure she can get a babysitter for that day. My wedding is months away, and I'm finding it really hard to believe that she knows that far in advance. 2 others have also said they're not going to stay for the reception as they will be tired by then. Here's where I may be the a-hole. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I sent the link to the registry. My fiancé and I already have a house together, so we're asking for mostly small things. Nothing goes beyond $50, and we're delighted with anything that anyone chooses to buy us. They sent a message into the chat saying they were going to band together to get me an air fryer as a group gift. Cost $40, so I was a bit surprised that they seemed to be chipping in about $8 each. Over the years, I must have spent thousands of dollars on their weddings, 2 of which were overseas. I have attended dinners and brunches to celebrate their job promotions and bought gifts for their babies, all the while feeling terrible about myself watching my friends celebrate the happiness I never thought I'd get. I sent a message just asking for clarification if it was all of them buying it together, and one replied asking if I was calling them cheap. And then there has been dead silence since. That really wasn't my intention, but it really feels like because I'm last, they're just over having to do these events and it's really feeding into my insecurity at getting married so late. But they do have legitimate reasons for these things. They all have lives and kids and maybe not as much money as when we were a bit younger. And maybe I'm just letting my insecurities get in the way. So, Reddit, AITA? Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA. These people aren't your friends. Find a new friend group. Oh, and they are cheap. Comment 2. Yeah, these people do not like OP. She is not picking up on it for some reason. Famous Ohio apple horn OP seems to be what I call the leftover friend. Basically, that one awkward person that has been in your group forever but isn't really anybody's friend aside from maybe the one girl who brought her into the group in the first place. Weddings, baby showers, and birthdays are the perfect time for everyone else to be like Jerry Seinfeld with hands up. I don't want to be around her. I'm 40 years old. Can I just not go to her party? Comment 3. I was willing to consider for a bit that maybe having kids made things different now from when they were all getting married, but buying an air fryer as a group gift. That's cheap. NTA. Comment 4. The worst part is actually the cheapness. If you're asking for all this understanding and compromise from one friend when being singled out and given zero effort, the least thing anyone can do to make up for that is get the most awesome gift as a sorry I didn't make the effort to come. Here's something to make up for it a bit. What they've shown now is that they don't want to make an effort on her at all, and also they don't want to spend money on her at all. I'd send this post to the group chat and then say my goodbyes, including don't bother with the air fryer. I've had more hot air by now than I can handle in a lifetime. Comment 5. Your friends are not really friends. In the definition, they are acquaintances. This happens quite often. People have lives and they may still remain in contact with you, but you're not their go-to. You're very generous and they have benefited from that. It reminds me of Sex in the City Season 6 Episode 9, A Woman's Right to Shoes. Update 1. Hi everyone. I didn't think I would have an update to give, but I wanted to repay everyone's kindness. Some people said some really lovely and helpful things. First off, I wanted to clarify a few questions that were asked. I didn't care at all what they bought us as a gift. I didn't care if they got us a gift at all. It was never about the air fryer. I really wasn't calling them cheap. I was just clarifying if it was coming from all of them. I also didn't ask if they were getting us a gift. They brought this up themselves. I couldn't put my finger on why it made me feel a bit weird. I think the word I was searching for was disrespect. Someone said an $8 gift is worse than no gift, and I think that's the heart of it. The money issue came up as well. As far as I know, all of my friends are fairly solvent. We all work in the finance field, mostly as accountants. 3 are very senior in their firms, and all of their husbands have good jobs. But we never discuss money, and I know kids and the cost of living is high at the moment, so I'd never want to assume anyone's financial status, but everyone seems okay. The other issue was a lot of people asked how often we see each other, and the answer is quite regularly. We made a pact years ago to meet up at least once a month, no matter how crazy life gets, and we've mostly been able to stick to that. The 6 of us usually meet for Sunday brunch. Apart from that, I live in the same neighborhood as 2 of them, so we do dinner occasionally, and parties for their kids, etc. are a must. The last question was that my wedding isn't child-free and is in our city. I love kids, and my friends' kids are surrogate nieces and nephews to me, and they are all invited. The friend who said she couldn't find childcare said she didn't want to bring her kids because she said weddings are easier without them. Lastly, some suggested they don't like my fiancé. They've never given me that impression. Everyone seems to get on well enough. They've known him for 2 years, and he occasionally goes golfing with some of their husbands. Now on to the update. Reading the comments was like having cold water thrown over me. I've never considered myself the outsider friend, but a lot of people suggested that I was, and it really threw me and I got really overwhelmed. I didn't send any message to the group chat even though lots of commenters gave me really good suggestions about what to write, and I withdrew into myself until my fiancé prized it out of me for what was wrong. I showed him this post and he got super quiet and really angry. I've never seen him this angry over anything ever. He asked if I had spoken to them about this and I said no. He started to call them individually and read them the riot act. He called them Sons of Beach and said he would be sending them an itemized list of the thousands of dollars I'd spent on them over the years. He called the one who said she couldn't get a babysitter, and she indeed said she was sick of having to go to the same boring wedding over and over, and yours won't be any different. And he lost it at her. I hate the idea of him fighting my battles for me, so I asked him to stop after the 3rd person. I sent a message into the group chat asking if we could all speak as a group, and the 3 he called sent voice messages saying that my fiancé was a psycho and that they wouldn't speak to me anymore. I just felt really tired and defeated, so I sent a message saying that if they didn't want to be friends anymore, that was fine, and to consider their invitations withdrawn to the bachelorette and wedding. No one has replied, so I guess we're done. I suppose I'm better off, but I don't feel that way. I just feel numb and sad. They've been such a big part of my life for so long, and I really feel the loss, and I'm so sad I won't see their kids anymore. Some of them refer to me as Auntie, and it's making me cry that I won't see them grow up. My fiancé has apologized for rushing in and for not asking me how I wanted to handle it, and I've accepted. We're good, and I am looking forward to our life together. I mostly wanted to say thank you to the kind Redditors that showed me the light about this and offered congratulations on our wedding and even offered to buy us a gift. I've never watched Sex in the City, but I'll watch the episode some people mentioned. It seems like I'll relate. I'll delete this post soon. I just want to put this behind me now. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Divorced my cheating husband at the age of 53. I finally started taking care of myself, but my adult kids are furious, saying I should have done it when it mattered. Hey everyone. I, 53F, have been divorced from my ex-husband, Larry, 54M, for 6 years. Larry and I have 2 adult children, Steve, 27M, and Carla, 25F. Larry and I met in college when we were both electrical engineering students. We were both very much on the nerdy side and looked the part, but were very attracted to each other, so I thought anyway. We got married soon after we graduated and both worked as engineers, but after a few years Larry decided he wanted to go to law school to become a patent lawyer. In order to look the lawyer part, Larry underwent a major glow-up during this time on pretty much all levels. Tailored clothes, fancy haircuts, designer accessories like watches, etc., along with working out to trade his dad bod for a lean gym bod. During this time, I was raising our small children while taking care of about 95% of household matters because of his long working hours, all while working full-time. I admit I did not glow up along with Larry. My own appearance has always been on the plainer side. I'm not overweight but a bit stocky, 5'5" / 140 lbs. Simply cut hair, glasses, practical clothes, not much makeup. Larry loved me as is for about the first decade of our relationship, but after he started working as a lawyer, he started to become drawn to more conventionally attractive women and had several affairs. When I pressed for counseling, he said that the issues were things like my big nose and post-baby tummy pooch, not things I could fix with a simple makeover. I was getting organized to ask for a divorce when Carla was hit by a car while riding her bike. She survived and is fine now but needed several years of intensive surgeries and rehab. In order to provide a unified front for Carla and Steve, Larry and I agreed to stay married and be as cordial as possible. He continued to see other women during this time, but by this time I was past trying to get them to be faithful. We did separate and divorce after Carla went off to college. Larry is remarried now to a much younger woman, 33F. In the past couple years, I have actually decided to focus more on myself, including my appearance. Now that my children are grown and out of the house and I don't have to worry about tiptoeing around a difficult husband, I finally have time and resources to do so. I didn't get a nose job or other plastic surgery like Larry had wanted, but I did update and color my hair, started working out more, lost about 15 pounds, got a new wardrobe, and actually started dating. I don't have a steady partner yet, but regularly go to age-appropriate singles events and go on dates. Unfortunately, my children detest the new me. In particular, they blame me for the divorce and are angry that I didn't glow up to accommodate Larry, saying I was too selfish and lazy to do so when it mattered. My son Steve is getting married soon and says he is too angry to invite me to the wedding. Carla has gone low contact with me. I had great relationships with both of them until I started my own glow-up process a couple years ago, which was a few years after Larry and I finalized our divorce. Steve and Carla have told me that the only way to fix this, the only thing that would be fair, is to go back to the way I was before, meaning stop coloring my hair, dress in my former plain/frumpy way, and stop dating. They say they are most upset about the dating and that it's not fair for me to be looking for a new partner. So, am I the a-hole for everything I have done here for not improving my appearance until after I got divorced? I really don't think Larry would have been faithful to me, no matter how much I twisted myself in knots. I felt I did the best I could given the energy and resources I had, and while it may seem selfish, I do believe I deserve to have my own life now. But I am open to other opinions if I have done something wrong here. Additional information from OOP to clarify some things. I appreciate your perspective, but I think there may be some unfair conclusions here. First, where did I ever say I had no sex drive? Our sex life was fantastic for the first decade of our relationship, including after having 2 kids. It only diminished after he decided he had other attraction preferences as he started to rise in the lawyer ranks at his firm. Next, where did I ever say I didn't maintain my appearance? I did in fact maintain the appearance I'd had since college. I said we were both on the nerdy side. I maintained a healthy weight even after kids and always looked tidy and appropriate for the occasion. In my case, the occasion just happened to be my engineering job and my family/household responsibilities. I just didn't have high-end haircuts and designer clothes, etc. Was I a bit frumpy? Probably, as compared to a big firm lawyer with a $500 haircut and regular spot treatments, but I didn't let myself go by changing my appearance for the worse after marriage. Also, I don't think it's fair to say that I didn't improve myself in any capacity during our marriage. I advanced significantly in my career while keeping a warm and loving home, cooking healthy meals, and otherwise raising our kids. Those were my priorities, especially after Carla's accident. I don't think I got what I had coming just for not wanting painful and time-consuming plastic surgery, especially as one of the big things he wanted me to do was get a nose job when I was already perfectly happy with my nose. If he'd suggested some smaller changes like updating my hairstyle and wardrobe or even a gym membership and had broached the idea kindly and had given me time to do these things, I likely would have been more amenable. But as it was, he set the bar so high, surgery, that it didn't seem like I could reasonably make him happy. Update 1. First, thanks so much for everyone who responded to my initial post. I started out trying to acknowledge everyone's responses, but as they grew to the thousands, I wasn't able to keep up. I'm so sorry. I did read everything and appreciate your time and thoughts, both for those who offered support and those who had more critical feedback. As a small update, while I do agree that the behavior of my adult children, Steve, 27M, and Carla, 25F, has been extremely judgmental and unkind, to say the least, I am not ready to write them off. I realized that since they started in with their criticisms a couple years ago when I started changing my appearance, I've been very defensive and dismissive. Perhaps that is justified, but as I do want to make every effort to maintain a good relationship with my children, I decided that it would be best to listen with an open mind. This doesn't mean I'm going to go back to my old frumpy appearance to accommodate them, of course not, but just that I am open to hearing what is really bothering them so we can hopefully talk it out. When I contacted them both to request this, they agreed to have brunch with me this coming weekend, which is a good start. Perhaps the conversation won't change anything, but I'd always regret it if I didn't try, and listening is free. Many of the commenters felt that some info must have been missing from my initial post. I thought I hit all the main points but can fill in a bit more detail here. For about the first decade of my relationship with my ex-husband, Larry, things were really wonderful, or at least I thought so. As I mentioned, we met in college as electrical engineering students who both had fairly plain and unfashionable appearances by conventional standards. Honestly, as a nerdy woman, I have always been much more attracted to nerdy-looking men than super-polished ones, just a better match for me, I guess. Larry seemed crazy about me from the get-go, and I was equally crazy about him. We graduated, both got good engineering jobs, bought a house, and started our family. We had a very warm and loving home, lots of quality intimacy, and frequently hosted our equally nerdy friends for D&D and anime nights. Then Larry decided he wanted to go to law school. Nothing really changed for the first couple years, but the law school career counselors advised him to spruce up his appearance when it was time to start applying for attorney jobs. Hence his own glow-up began. Even after that, for his first couple years as a law firm associate, he jokingly referred to his new look as his silly lawyer costume, and looked forward to coming home to change into his anime t-shirts. I didn't try to match his new appearance because he never asked me to, and B, initially it seemed like it was just some sort of uniform for him that he was somewhat uncomfortable with. However, this all changed abruptly one night when I was supposed to accompany him to an award dinner for his firm. Knowing that it was a fancy thing and that I wasn't the best with fashion, etc., I actually went and got my hair and makeup professionally done and worked with a personal shopper to select what I thought was a flattering dress and shoes appropriate for the occasion. However, when Larry saw me in this getup, he suddenly got angry, made lipstick on a pig type comments, and threw out the insults about my nose and post-baby tummy pooch. I learned shortly afterwards that he'd started an affair with a colleague who happened to have a small, pert nose and flat stomach. Even after he was so mean, I was still hopeful that we could get counseling and work through this, but he didn't want to. I will admit I was paralyzed for a while and also didn't want to make any rash moves due to the impact on the kids, and perhaps I could have made better decisions there, but by the time I was actually ready emotionally and logistically to proceed with a divorce, Carla had her accident and I had to shift gears to prioritizing her recovery. On another note, contrary to what some commenters assumed, my post-divorce glow-up had nothing to do with wanting to meet new men. Initially, it was precipitated by having a work-related opportunity to do more high-profile, client-facing activities, and I received some gentle guidance from my supervisor that it would be a great time to update my appearance. Hence the new hairstyle, wardrobe, manicures, etc. In addition, once I hit 50, my A1C started creeping a bit higher, as diabetes runs in my family. Although at 5 feet 5 inches and 140 pounds I wasn't medically overweight, my doctor advised that losing just a few pounds coupled with some dietary tweaks and changing up my exercise routine would be a good idea. So I added yoga, Pilates, and strength training to the hiking and cycling I already did and ended up losing about 15 lbs over the course of a year. I'd always been physically active, despite some commenters accusing me of being lazy. I just wasn't focused on sculpting my body to look a certain way as opposed to general fitness. Once I slimmed down and updated my look, I did find myself getting a lot more attention from men, so I figured since I'd been single for a few years, I might as well lean into it and start dating. But again, that wasn't the initial reason. Some commenters asked if I'd spent family money on my makeover and if that might be what was making my children upset. The answer to that is no. Larry and I divided our assets in the divorce. He got the big house we had lived in and paid me for my share, which allowed me to buy a much smaller house and have plenty left. Although as a law firm partner he makes about 10x what I do, I did not request any alimony beyond my 50% of our assets, which had all been accumulated during the marriage anyway. If folks are interested, I can post an additional update next week once I can talk to my children and find out more about what their issue is. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Future ML called me stupid and my fiancé laughed. Now I'm reconsidering the wedding. What should I do? I, 23F, am engaged to John, 24M. We have been together for 5 years. We want to get married in July 2025. I always thought that his family liked me because we get along well. He has 2 older brothers, 26M, 29M, both married. Honestly, I was very excited to have them all as my in-laws. They were always kind to me. Some kind of important information. About a year ago, when I was scrolling on Instagram, I saw a profile that was kind of cringy but in a cute way. It was an older woman's profile who shared inspirational quotes. I remember one particular post, and it was something in the lines of, "Only stupid people pretend to know everything. Don't pretend, just ask." Honestly, this quote changed me in a lot of ways. Before that, I was always worried that I might embarrass myself if I didn't know something, and after reading that quote, I realized that if I always pretend that I know everything, then I'll miss out on actually getting to learn about things. So I decided to change my habits and start admitting that sometimes I genuinely don't know. Someone is talking about the war in Kosovo? Okay, sure. But first let me ask some questions so I can really understand what we're talking about. And I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I even open the Notes app and write in some questions that I later want to find answers to. These are my latest. How does time work in the black hole? Why do some snails have shells and others don't? What food is okay for ducks? How does the light bulb work, the old ones with gas inside them? Does everyone see colors the same, and how can we know that? Sorry for the long introduction, but it was kind of necessary for understanding what kind of person I am. I know that sometimes I might come across as annoying. Now on to the problem. His parents hosted a small barbecue last weekend, only for the family, so it was the mom, 54F, dad, 59M, brothers, 26M, 29M, and their wives, 27M, 27F. I was the last person who showed up because I had to work late. I entered the house, And when I was walking towards the back of the house into the backyard, I heard John's mom talking about me. To be honest, she wasn't talking about me, more like mocking me. I heard her say in a high-pitched voice, "How does the sun work? Where should I put the fork? Why does nobody like me? How do I wipe my ass?" I just stood there. I had this sinking feeling. I couldn't move, so I just stood there and I heard them all laughing. One of the wives said, "I actually don't mind her always asking questions. I think it's cute." And it made me feel hopeful that they will say something like, "Yeah, sure, we're just playing. We love that." But none of them did. Instead, the mom replied, "It's not cute. She's just stupid." After that, they laughed again. I heard John laughing. My heart kind of broke at that moment because he didn't even say one positive thing. He didn't defend me. He just laughed. I quietly turned around and left the house. I texted John that I got sick and had to stay home. Now I'm wondering how I should approach this situation. We live together and I sleep in the guest bedroom for now, and I use the excuse that I don't want him to get sick from being around me. I can't ignore him forever, and I can't pretend to be sick anymore because it's been too long. I'm not sure how to proceed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'm considering talking to them about this, but I'm also worried that they won't be honest with me. I can't marry him if he really thinks I'm stupid, but I also can't marry into a family who thinks so little of me. But maybe it was a joke, and I shouldn't take it so seriously. I'm so torn apart, and every day I convince myself a bit more that it's okay and sometimes we should all laugh about ourselves. Now I feel like I'm just going crazy. I would really appreciate some advice. Tildar. Overheard future Mel calling me stupid and my fiancé laughed, considering leaving him. I'm wondering if it might be just a joke and maybe a misunderstanding. Need advice on how to navigate the situation. Edit. There are many comments saying that they cannot stand people like me. I agree that sometimes I can be a bit too much with the questions, but with that being said, I still think I'm within reason. I don't do it around people I just met. I rarely do it at parties or other gatherings. I usually do it with people who are close to me who I think wouldn't judge me, or with people who specifically have knowledge about something and are willing to share it. If I'm a part of a conversation, I'm not rude, and I'm not interrupting. I usually just ask one or two questions. If a discussion is about climate change, I'm not asking about monkeys, if you know what I'm saying. I'm also not a complete dumbass. I don't ask questions which generally would be considered dumb to other people. I just write in the notes and check answers later on the internet. I'm capable of reading, so I make good use of it. But after all, I still do ask questions a lot. Update 1. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to people who reached out to answer my questions about black holes, snails, ducks, light bulbs, and other stuff. I would love to have you as my friends. For the other people who said I should just shut up, I don't really care if you find me annoying or hard to be around. I'm okay with that. I don't exist to please everyone. I'm just here for a good time, have my own interests, and learn. I didn't expect my post to gain so much attention, but I'm so grateful for the advice. Most of you told me to break up with him and at the very least confront him, so that's what I decided to do. You gave me a push and confidence to do it. But before I did that, I texted the wife of John's brother, the one who said she liked me asking questions. I asked if we could meet up for coffee. She said, "Sure." We met, and I didn't see the point in pretending to her that I didn't hear their conversation. So after some small talk, I just said, "I heard you all talking about me during the barbecue." She immediately got sad and said she felt embarrassed. She explained that it wasn't a joke, wasn't out of context, that it was just mean and hurtful. She said she's sorry for not defending me more, but I said, "That's okay, and I understand." I told her that I don't blame her for anything and just wanted to make sure that I understood the situation and see it for what it really was, and it really was laughing at me behind my back, just bullying at this point. I just had to confront John. In my last post, so many comments were saying that he will probably try gaslighting me, and you were right. We were having dinner together for the first time since the barbecue happened because before I tried my best to avoid him. Yes, I know, not very mature of me, but other than you guys, I don't really have a strong support system. My family and best friends are hundreds of kilometers away. I only have 2 good friends here. I was so stressed I thought I'm gonna pass out. My legs were shaking. and I was terrified because I knew deep down that this is the moment when my 5-year relationship goes down the drain. I looked him in the eyes and asked, "How does the sun work?" He looked confused, so I followed with, "Where should I put my fork? Why does nobody like me?" At this point, realization hit him, and he started nervously laughing. I said, "I was there and I heard them." After the initial shock passed, he got mad. He said it's rude to eavesdrop. I said it's rude to bully people. He tried telling me that it was just a joke, that I shouldn't be so uptight, that it really was funny. I said that I didn't find it funny and went to the guest room to calm down. He started panicking. He was asking me to please talk to him. He was much more apologetic and said that he will be 100% honest with me. I asked if his mother made similar comments before the barbecue. He said, "Yes." I asked him if he ever defended me. He said he tries to. I don't know if I believe him. He told me he loves me and respects me. I don't know if I believe it either. I said that I love him too, but I need a break. He's all I ever knew. He was my first and only partner. I have no outside perspective of this. I have no experience. I need a moment to think. I will be going to my friend's house for a while to think everything through. The apartment has his name on the lease anyway. After I gathered some of my things and left, he kept texting me nonstop. He tried calling, but I didn't respond. I was very hurt because he tried to belittle my feelings and only later, when he realized that I might break up with him, started apologizing. The next day, I decided to give him another chance to explain himself, and I came back to the apartment. He seemed very sad and tired. He said that he told his mother that I overheard them. I said, "I don't care. This is time to step up and show me that he cares. I'm not interested in an apology from his mother. I'm already done with her. I can't put up with this behavior and mocking me like we're in primary school." I saw a comment saying that probably her ego is hurting. I think it's true. She never got the chance or never had the desire to have an education. She is a very good homemaker, but outside of that, she doesn't have many interests of her own. If I'm asking her about making tomato soup, she will be talking for 30 minutes lecturing me about adding enough sugar, but not too much. She will lecture anyone who is willing to listen, but anytime someone is talking about something she's not familiar with, she gets defensive and tries to imply that nobody cares about that, and if it's not relevant to her, it shouldn't be discussed. Once again, he tried telling me that I should relax because it was only a joke, and at this point I had enough. I took off my ring and told him that his behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. I told him that I wish him and his family the best and to look in the mirror to check if they really are as superior as they think they are. I said I'm going to be back with my friend soon to pick up the rest of my stuff and to not contact me again unless it's about moving my things out. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you all for the advice. Without you, I wouldn't have had the confidence to leave this man. I know I deserve better. I can't be with someone who can't stand up for me, and I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable around his family. So I'm done with the relationship. I hope they will treat his next girlfriend better. Thank you again on Reddit for advice. Relevant comments. Commenter. Keep on being curious, not judgmental. OP. Same. I absolutely love that show. I watched it with my ex, and it's funny that he didn't like Ted and thought that his character was not relatable and silly. TBH, we all should have Ted's strength and positivity sometimes. Commenter. OP, your XMIL can still go and get an education. Many have, and there is still time. That's no excuse for what she did. And her saying that and acting like that shows how uneducated she is. OP, I think so too. I believe it's never too late to start learning something new and continue education. In my uni, there was an old lady in her 70s who recently graduated, and everyone was just so proud of her. In my country, university is free, so the barrier of entry isn't as bad as in the US, for example. Update 2. It's been some time since I posted the last time, so I thought I'm going to give you guys a small update because some people still keep messaging me. I appreciate all the kind words. So I got my own apartment now. I lived with my friend for a while, and she was an amazing support for me after the breakup, but now I have my own place closer to my university and work. Turns out my ex-fiancé didn't tell his family that we broke up. I blocked them all except for the ex because we needed to keep in touch in order to get my stuff from the apartment that we shared. And his sister-in-law, a week after the breakup, she texted me and asked when I will come to the parents' house because everyone wants to apologize. I called her and said that we're no longer together and I don't really want their apology. She seemed shocked because my ex was telling them that we're fine. She just needs some time. His ex-sister-in-law told me that the family is still fighting over this whole ordeal and that the brothers are giving my ex a hard time about the situation. I told her nicely that I don't really want any updates. I like her, but I cannot put my energy towards following their every move. She told me she understands. I don't know what happened after that with them. I'm happy. I went on a date with a cute guy I met in a cafe, but I'm taking everything slow, and I don't want to rush any relationship. I'm not ready because just 3 months ago, I was planning a wedding, and right now, I'm single and focusing on studying and work. When I graduate, I want to adopt a kitten, and that's my only goal in terms of any big commitment right now. I also enrolled in CS50 by Harvard X, and I recommend you all to try and learn something new today. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask, and I will try to answer in the comments. OP's comments. Commenter. Update us on the kitten. Please, OP. I will for sure. I'm so excited. I wanted to get a cat for so long, but my ex was against it. He didn't like cats, he was a dog person. I'm waiting till I graduate because I want to have more free time to actually take care of it. Commenter. This may sound like a lot, but consider adopting 2 together. 2 siblings or a bonded pair are not much more work than one, and they entertain each other and are so fun to watch. My profile pic is of our kitten we adopted with his sister at the same time, and it's great. OP. Oh, okay. That's good to know, thanks. And your kitten is so cute. Give him and his sister some scratches and pets from me. Commenter. Part of a longer comment. May I ask if you have already gone and picked your stuff from his place and blocked him for good? Hope so for you to end the chapter more easily. OP. Yeah. After a week and a half, I was done picking up my stuff. I tried not to be petty and take my silverware, for example, and not give him a reason to get mad. I didn't want to come alone, so I only went when my friend had the time to help me. He did get mad when I took my air fryer. He loved it more than anything. Haha. I blocked him after I took everything that was mine. Ex's family. I think even though the brothers still think what the family said during the barbecue was funny, they are giving my ex a hard time because he let a good one go or something like that. They don't think they were in the wrong, but they're making fun of him for not standing up for me, and they're laughing at the fact that I broke up with him and he didn't even have the balls to tell them. One of them said that if someone called his wife stupid, he would defend her, even if she would have done something dumb. Commenter, you don't have a SIL. Law is literally in the title. OP. Yeah, it's just easier for people to read and understand. I didn't want to call her my fiancé's brother's wife, because that's long and awkward. Commenter. Seems like you moved on very easily from love to engaged and blocked within a few weeks. Oh, yeah. The love faded really fast. I didn't expect it. The attachment to him is still there, but I very quickly stopped feeling love for him when I fully realized that he sees me as stupid and at the very least not on his level. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.